Good afternoon and welcome to the November 1st, 2022 regular meeting of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. On behalf of the entire San Francisco Board of Supervisors, we condemn the vicious attack on Paul Pelosi, husband of Speaker Nancy Pelosi, which occurred early morning last Friday. The Board of Supervisors condemns all types of violence, including violence towards public officials and their families. This type of violence has no place in our society. The tragic, politically motivated attack on Paul Pelosi and all forms of violence are not to be tolerated. This is also a direct symptom of the attack on the Capitol on January 6 of 2021. These threats on our public safety and democracy have been real, and as long as we continue to support narratives that promote divisiveness and ignorance, we are all in danger. We send our thoughts and prayers to Speaker Pelosi and her family, and we wish Mr. Pelosi a speedy recovery. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. President. Supervisor Chan. Chan present. Supervisor Dorsey. Dorsey present. Supervisor Mandelman. Mandelman present. Supervisor Marr. Marr present. Supervisor Melgar. Melgar present. Supervisor Peskin.
Present.
Peskin present. Supervisor Preston. Preston present. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan present. Supervisor Safai.
Presente.
Safai present. Supervisor Stephanie. Stephanie present. And Supervisor Walton.
Present.
Walton present. Mr. President, all members are present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The San Francisco Board of Supervisors acknowledges that we are on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the indigenous stewards of this land, and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as caretakers of this place, as well as for all peoples who reside in their traditional territory. As guests, we recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. We wish to pay our respects by acknowledging the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush Ohlone community, and by affirming their sovereign rights as First People. Colleagues, please stand with me to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On behalf of the Board of Supervisors, I would like to acknowledge the staff at SF-Gov TV. Today we have Kalina Mendoza, who record each of our meetings and make the transcripts available to the public online. Madam Clerk, do we have any communications?
Yes, Mr. President. The Board of Supervisors welcomes the general public to listen to the proceedings either in person or remotely. The Board will prioritize hearing any testimony or comments from those who attend in person first. Only thereafter, the Board will hear from those who called into the remote system. To watch remotely, the meeting is airing live on SFGOV TV's award-winning Channel 26, or you may view the computer live stream at www.sfgovtv.org. If you intend on participating remotely, the telephone number and the meeting ID is published on the agenda and streaming on your screen. After entering that information, press the pound symbol twice. You'll have joined the meeting. You will hear the discussion, but your line will be muted. Once you are ready to provide your comment, press *3. That way you'll get into the speaker's queue. The system will prompt that you have been unmuted, and just begin speaking your comments. There are several 3 p.m. special orders today. The first, items 34 through 37. This is the appeal of determination of exemption from environmental review for the proposed project at 45 Bernard Street. The appellants have withdrawn this appeal. Once the public hearing is open, the testimony will be taken on the withdrawal of the appeal or the approval of the project. Items 38 and 39, this is the public hearing for the Transbay Block 4 redevelopment project. This item 39, after a public hearing, the testimony will be taken on the referral to committee. A motion may be made that the board refer this item to the Land Use Committee. And then we'll have items 40, 41, 44, and 45 called together at the end of the meeting, once item 48 has been approved. This is the hearing on the Laguna Honda Hospital strategy for recertification and the submission of a closure and patient transfer, in addition to the settlement of the lawsuit. To the agenda content that will be eligible for your public comment today. Once item 43 is called, you may speak to the approval of the minutes as presented. Items 46 through 48, the items for consideration on the adoption without committee reference calendar, and general matters that are not on today's agenda but are within the board's subject matter jurisdiction. All other agenda content will have been reported out to the board by an appropriate committee where the public comment requirement occurred. Communication with the board is still possible if you send your written correspondence by U.S. mail, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, the number 1, Dr. Carlton B. Goodlett Place, room 244 in City Hall, San Francisco, California, 94102, or you may send an email to the board using the email address bos@sfgov.org. In a great partnership with the Office of Civic Engagement, we will have interpreters beginning at 3 p.m. And finally, we do have a clerk standing by to assist you at 415-554-5184. Members, Mr. President, that concludes my communication.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And before we get started, colleagues, just a friendly reminder to please mute your microphones when you are not speaking. We are now at our approval of minutes. Today we are approving the meeting minutes from the September 27, 2022 regular board meeting. I don't see anyone on the roster. Any changes? I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes made by Supervisor Peskin and seconded by Raphael Mandelman. Madam Clerk.
On the minutes, as presented, Supervisor Preston. Preston, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai.
Aye.
Safai, aye. Supervisor Stephanie. Stephanie, aye. Supervisor Walton.
Aye.
Walton, aye. Supervisor Chan. Chan, aye. Supervisor Dorsey. Dorsey, aye. Supervisor Mandelman. Mandelman, aye. Supervisor Marr. Marr, aye. Supervisor Melgar. Melgar, aye. And Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. There are 11 ayes.
Thank you, and without objection, the minutes will be approved after public comment as presented. Madam Clerk, let's go to our consent agenda, items 1 through 21.
Items 1 through 21 are on consent. These items are considered to be routine. If a member objects, an item may be removed and considered separately.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I don't see anyone on the roster, so we will take these items same house, same call. And without objection, these ordinances are passed on first reading or finally passed, and the resolutions are adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, please call regular agenda, new business, item number 22.
Item 22, this is an ordinance to amend the program established in ordinance number 143-21 to waive certain first-year permit, license, and business registration fees for certain small businesses, retroactive to November 1st, 2021, and to extend the program through June 30th, 2023, to expand the business types covered by the waiver, among other administrative changes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Supervisor Marr?
Thank you. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor, and I want to thank Supervisor Ronan for all of her leadership on this important policy.
Thank you, Supervisor Marr. Supervisor Stephanie?
I'd like to echo that, and please add me as a co-sponsor as well. Thanks.
Thank you, colleagues. I don't see anyone on the roster, so we will take this item same house, same call. And without objection, this ordinance is passed on first reading unanimously. Madam Clerk, please call item number 23.
Item 23, this is an ordinance to amend the administrative code to exempt from property taxation real property valued at $500 or less and possessory interests valued at $4,000 or less beginning in the 2023 through 24 assessment year.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I don't see anyone on the roster, so we will take this item same house, same call. And without objection, this ordinance is passed on first reading unanimously. Madam Clerk, please call item number 24.
Item 24, this is a resolution to approve a lease amendment for 1390 Market Street, Fox Plaza, with SF2 1390 Market Street, LLC, for a term extension to January 1st, 2023, to the date that is 5 years after the completion of certain tenant improvements for use by the Office of the City Attorney for approximately $5 million in annual rent, with 3% annual increases, and the city contributing $1.6 million towards the cost of the tenant improvements, and to approve the continued use of a portion of the premises for child care services.
Thank you. I don't see anyone on the roster, so we will take this item, same house, same call. And without objection, this resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, would you please call item number 25?
Item 25, this is a resolution to retroactively authorize the Public Defender's Office to accept and expend an approximate $1.2 million grant from the California Board of State and Community Corrections to comply with various penal code sections to use these funds to support the resentencing of individuals for the period of March 1st, 2022 through March 1st, 2025.
Thank you. Seeing no one on the roster, we will take this item, same house, same call. Without objection, this resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, please call item number 26.
Item 26, this is a resolution to approve a professional services agreement for an airport contract 50303 to provide shuttle bus services at the San Francisco International Airport between SFO Hotel Shuttle, Inc. and the city, acting by and through the Airport Commission, in an amount not to exceed approximately $72.6 million for a period of 5 years to commence upon Board of Supervisors approval.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I don't see anyone on the roster, so we will take this item, same house, same call. Without objection, this resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, please call item number 27.
Item 27, resolution to retroactively approve an agreement number 22-2015-4 between the DPH, the Department of Public Health, Behavioral Health Services, and the California Department of Health Care Services to provide substance use disorder services for approximately $248.6 million for a 5-year term through June 30th, 2027, and to authorize the DPH to enter into amendments or modifications to the agreement necessary to effectuate the purposes of the agreement or this resolution.
Thank you. Supervisor Safai.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we heard this item in committee last week. We requested, because of the size and magnitude of this contract and this amount, this is money's coming down from the state, we wanted to know which providers were identified by the Department of Public Health as potential recipients. As we received that list yesterday, one of the identified nonprofits was potential recipient was Baker Places for over $4.5 million. Had a conversation with Dr. Kunins this morning. Do not feel comfortable with this going forward today. So I'm going to be making a motion to send this back to committee to have a further conversation about how those monies will be spent, how they intend to spend those monies, particularly with which organizations would be replacing Baker Places, if any. We've been having this ongoing conversation. There's a lot of angst and concern, I think, on many members of the Board of Supervisors, particularly around the area of substance abuse treatment, and it's something that I know it impacts all of us. We're all concerned about it. So we want to have a further vetting in committee. So I make a motion to send this back to committee and get to the bottom of this fully.
Thank you, Supervisor Safai. Seconded by Supervisor Stephanie, and this is to budget, correct? Yes. Thank you. Supervisor Mandelman.
My apologies. I did not know this was coming, and I guess I'd like to know a little bit more, because from my perspective, the problem for Baker Place PRC is that they do not have enough money. So I am to do the things that we were asking them to do. So I am concerned about denying them $4 million. So what is this for? What's the time?
Through the chair, we've been notified by Baker Places they're going out of business, Supervisor Mandelman. They're no longer able to provide these services, so it would not make sense for us in many ways.
I don't know that we've been notified that Baker Place is going out of business. I know that we are
in this particular area of their substance abuse treatment. There's a number of their facilities that are being shut down across the city.
Maybe I would benefit from having just someone from DPH talk to us a little bit about this.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's why I want to send it back to committee.
So just real quick, Supervisor Safai. So yes, Supervisor Mandelman, are you requesting somebody try to speak on this here at this meeting?
That would be great.
Okay. Do we have a representative from,
We are checking currently,
DPH?
Mr. President.
No.
and Supervisor Mandelman, you do understand that that's probably not going to stop this from moving forward?
Mr. President, we do have Anna Valdizic signed in from DPH.
Thank you. Anna?
Thank you, Supervisors. I am not the appropriate staff member to be talking about this, but I am texting them right now and seeing if they can sign on. Max Rocha was the one that presented at Budget and Finance, and I am getting him. He is unfortunately in the Health Commission right now, so he cannot answer these questions.
So Anna, why don't we do this? We'll come back to this item later in the meeting.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Supervisor Ronan? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Safai and Supervisor Mandelman. We will come back to item 27. Madam Clerk, please call item number 28.
Item 28, this is a resolution to respond to the presiding judge of the Superior Court on the findings and recommendations contained in the 2021 through 22 Civil Grand Jury Report pertaining to the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing, and to urge the mayor to cause the implementation of accepted findings and recommendations through her department heads and through the development of the annual budget.
Thank you. Supervisor Preston.
Thank you, President Walden and colleagues. This is the last of this year's civil grand jury reports that we heard in GAO, and just really want to thank again the clerk's office for all their work on this, my colleagues on the committee, and in particular the members of the civil grand jury for all their work, and a number of folks commented through this process that the civil grand jury reports this year were particularly strong, really exercising important independent oversight and guiding a lot of our decision making and policy making. So I very much appreciate all of their work, and this latest one, I will not go into the details. It was not particularly controversial, in part because the primary the primary suggestion among many was that we do exactly what this body has already voted to do, which is to put on the ballot a oversight commission over our Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing. And so we were pleased to be able to report that we had done that, and thank you, Supervisor Safai, for your leadership on that. So thanks again to the civil grand jury and to everyone involved in all of these various civil grand jury reports and the responses from the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Preston. Seeing no one else remaining on the roster, we will take this item same house, same call, and without objection, this resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, please call item number 29.
Item 29, this is a resolution to retroactively approve a memorandum of understanding with the cities of Oakland, San Jose, and counties of Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, Monterey, San Mateo, Santa Clara, and Sonoma that provides governance structures and procedures for application, allocation, and distribution of Federal Urban Areas Security Initiative, the UASI grant, funds to the Bay Area urban area, as well as for other federal grant funds to the Bay Area urban area as permitted under the MOU, and continues San Francisco as the primary grantee and fiscal agent for the UASI grant funds, as well as for other federal grant funds to the Bay Area urban area as permitted under the MOU for the term through November 30th, 2025.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Seeing no one on the roster, we will take this item, same house, same call, and without any reservation and without objection, this resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, would you please call item number 30?
Item 30, this is a resolution to authorize the County Health Officer, the Department of Public Health's Director of Environmental Health Branch, or their respective designees, to enter into remedial action agreements and oversee remedial investigations and remedial actions at hazardous waste release sites.
Thank you so much. I don't see anyone on the roster, so we will take this item, same house, same call. Without objection, this resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, please call items number 31 through 33 together.
Items 31 through 33 comprise three motions that appoint new members to 3 Assessment Appeals Board. For item 31, this appoints Adina Gilbert, residency requirement waived, term ending September 2nd, 2024, and Jeffrey Morris and Christine Nelson, terms ending September 1st, 2025, to Assessment Appeals Board number 1. Item 32 appoints John Lee, Mervyn Conlon, and Yosef Tabazov, terms ending September 1st, 2025, to Assessment Appeals Board number 2. And item 33 appoints Sean Ridgel and James Reynolds, terms ending September 1st, 2025, to Assessment Appeals Board number 3.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Supervisor Safai.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just after consulting with City Attorney, I wanted to state for the record, I know Yosef Tabazov, have known that family and their family for a long time. Just wanted to state that for the record.
Thank you, Supervisor Safai. Seeing no one else on the roster, we will take these motions, same house, same call, and without objection, these motions are approved unanimously. Madam Clerk, let's go to item number, no, we can't do that. Let's go to roll call for introductions,
Okay.
please.
Supervisor Preston, you're up first.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And colleagues, one of the many things that this board did during the budget process was to amend our current budget and legislative analyst services contract, increasing the capacity of the BLA for the first time in many years. And in furtherance of the board's oversight role, our goal was to allow the board to more proactively audit city practices and make recommendations to minimize the potential for corruption. Today, I am pleased to introduce a motion for the first set of additional audits pursuant to this expanded BLA capacity. These are two anti-corruption audits. The first of them will follow up on some work the controller's done in this area and focus on departments that have delegated authority for public works improvements or professional services under Chapter 6 of the Administrative Code to analyze procurements under this delegated authority. The 6 departments with the delegated authority under Chapter 6 are Public Works, MTA, Airport, Port, PUC, and Rec Park. The delegated authority includes the ability for department heads of the 6 departments to award any public works or professional services contract under $1 million with little to no oversight. These contracts can be authorized without approval of the mayor, without approval of the Board of Supervisors, without approval of the commission that's overseeing the department, and contracts above the $1 million threshold but up to $10 million are subject only to review by the applicable commission overseeing the department, not by any other body, and do not require review by the Office of Contract Administration, the city's centralized purchasing function, or the Board of Supervisors. So the first audit will examine these contracts under the delegated authority and practices in place to prevent abuse or corruption. The second of the audits will look at the city's policies and procedures around conflicts of interest, including monitoring and prevention based on Form 700 conflicts and other measures in place to ensure decision makers are not operating under a conflict of interest when they're making important decisions about contracts or any other items subject to discretionary decision making. So one thing I do want to emphasize is that neither of these are audits that are coming in response to any particular scandal or alleged misconduct. These are proactive audits, and that was the point here, that we want to look into policies and practices that are potentially high risk to determine whether the city can implement any changes to ensure can better protect ourselves from corruption and further scandals in the future. So I want to thank you, colleagues, for your support for the expansion of the BLA that made this possible. I hope to have your support on the motion, and really want to thank the BLA, all the folks at the BLA, especially Dan Gonsher and Lyndon Berry, who worked very closely with our office in developing these proposed audit topics. And the rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Preston. Supervisor Ronan.
Thank you. Colleagues, today I'm introducing an ordinance that will codify the San Francisco Public Utility Commission's Social Impact Partnership Program, also known as SIP. For over 10 years, SIP commitments have supported local communities in addressing inequities, building community trust, improving quality of life, and creating meaningful impact. Under the SIP program, firms contracting with the PUC can voluntarily make commitments via financial contributions and or volunteer hours to nonprofit organizations and or public education providers in communities affected by SFPUC's contracts, projects, and service operations. SIP commitments are focused in the area of job, internship and career development, small business growth, educational programming, and environmental and community health. I've been working on this legislation for a few years now, and I'm so excited to see it finally come to fruition in ways that embody our values of transparency, accountability, and good governance. I want to thank Supervisors Stephanie, Chan, Melgar, Walton, Safai, Peskin, Preston, and Marr for their co-sponsorship and support for this amazing program. And a huge shout out to Masood and Chelsea of the SFPUC's Community Benefits Division, and to Nikita Saini of my office for your hard work on this. And the rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Ronan. Supervisor Safai.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, as many of you know, we, over the last year and a half, 2 years, we convened a working group focused on organized retail crime, theft, and thankfully we've had tremendous partnership from Chief Scott along with two different district attorneys now, our new district attorney, and the sheriff, California Retailers Association, NAACP, Organized Labor, Community Benefits District, a whole host of small and medium-sized businesses in the city that have been impacted by this level of crime. In one of our more recent meetings, it came up, one of the policy recommendations that just came out of there, on top of expanding law enforcement, which we've done through our 10A, working with Supervisor Ronan and others, we did the street vending permitting. What has just come up is, as frontline workers are often the victims or witnesses to these types of crimes, and sometimes violent crime, that they're not able to follow up and be part of the follow-up in court and have time off. So we are putting in a drafting request to our city attorney to work with the California retailers along with this working group to come up with appropriate time to allow for people that have been victims of crime, witnessed this organized retail theft, but mainly frontline workers, so they would have the appropriate time off to participate in bringing many of these cases to closure. Without appropriate witnesses, without those that are victims of these crimes, many of the cases are dropped, and then it's one of the reasons why we have often repeat offenders in these cases, and often all over the city. So we looked to create an opportunity and a pathway so that there's not barriers for those that are working paycheck to paycheck. Many of our frontline workers that have to choose between going to work or participating and being able to show up in court as these crimes have proliferated around our city. So this drafting request is being submitted today to ask for paid time off for crime victims and potentially others as witnesses that are participating in law enforcement proceedings or seeking care related to the crime. And the rest I submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Safai.
Let me do one more.
All right, we'll take one more before we head to 2:30 commendations. Supervisor Stephanie. Submit, thank you. Supervisor, Mr. President.
Madam Clerk, I believe we may be able to start our recognition of commendations.
Very good. Yes, the special order at 2:30 p.m. is the recognition of commendations for meritorious service, courage, and bravery.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, today we have special commendations honoring our veterans, hosted by Supervisor Marr and Supervisor Stephanie. Supervisor Marr will start with some opening words and submit his honoree, followed by Supervisor Stephanie. We will then proceed with roll call order. Just a reminder to try and keep our presentations to 5 minutes. Thank you so much. Supervisor Marr.
Thank you so much, President Walton and colleagues, for what I believe is the first ever Board of Supervisors celebration and special joint commendations for Veterans Month in the City and County of San Francisco. I really want to thank Supervisor Stephanie for your leadership in initiating this important public recognition of the immense contributions and sacrifices our veterans have made to our city and our country. And as a son of a veteran and with so many family and friends who have and continue to serve in the U.S. military, I've made support for our veterans one of my top priorities as District 4 Supervisor. This includes sponsoring legislation last year to expand access for veterans to our city recreational and cultural facilities to support their mental and physical health, and then also legislation this year to very important legislation to prevent homelessness and expand access for veterans to city affordable housing programs and opportunities. Thank you so much, colleagues, for your support on both of these important policies supporting our veterans in our city. And really, most importantly, thank you to the veteran leaders and organizations and the veterans community for proposing and advocating for these policies and just for the recognition and support your community needs and deserves in our city. So colleagues, for my special commendation today, I'm very excited to honor an organization that played a central role in the Veterans Homelessness Prevention and Affordable Housing Access legislation, the Metropolitan Fresh Start House, a tremendously unique and important residential facility for formerly homeless veterans in the Sunset District. And I want to especially thank Rod Kearney and Sam DeVore from Fresh Start House for joining us here today. Fresh Start is a nonprofit community-based transitional housing program designed to assist unhoused veterans in San Francisco needing a new start in life. Their mission is to restore men to dignity, productivity, and responsibility. Specifically to remove unhoused veterans from the streets or habitation unfit for humans and unworthy of their sacrifices and service to our country, and to turn their despair into hope and optimism, to rebuild their self-respect and self-esteem while facilitating the improvement of their health and housing so they once again become self-sufficient members in our community. Since October of 2012, Fresh Start has partnered with the Veterans Administration's Healthcare for Homeless Veterans initiative, serving as an emergency residential treatment program providing outreach services, basic care, and rehabilitative services, including case management services and transitional housing assistance for unhoused veteran men in San Francisco. I thank Fresh Start not only for the hundreds of lives the organization has impacted and changed for the better, but also for being such an important part of the Sunset District community as really the only transitional housing program of any kind in our district. And so it's incredibly important for all of my constituents in District 4. And I just wanted to note that my office is currently working with Fresh Start and TNDC to create a pathway for Fresh Start residents to secure permanent supportive housing at the 2550 Irving Affordable Housing Development that is just 3 blocks away. So thank you again, Rod Kearney and Sam DeVore, for all of your dedication and your leadership sustaining Fresh Start, supporting hundreds of homeless veterans to access stable housing and the support they need. And I'm so pleased that we can recognize your truly transformational and heroic work here today. Thank you. And Rod and Sam, if you could please come forward, and you're welcome to make some remarks. Step up to the mic here.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Marr, and hello to all the board members and the audience. I grew into a home where my father was a
Sir, please adjust the microphone so we can hear you best.
Thank you. I grew up in a home where my father, being a career Air Force veteran, just kept me in contact with veterans literally all my life. And I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. And it's just always concerned me how we don't honor them more and do more for them. The sacrifice they make so that we maintain our way of living, the risks they take going to war, only to come back here to their home and have to fight in order to barely survive. So that's something near and dear to our hearts, and it's just always a welcome anytime anyone is seeking to do anything to help our veterans in any way. So we appreciate Supervisor Moore for the legislation he has proposed and the board has passed, and his upcoming things he's looking forward to doing for veterans, because again, we can never do enough for them. That said, I wanted to just add to Samuel DeVore, our program coordinator for the Metropolitan Fresh Start House, in his introduction. Sam served 3 years in Vietnam and received 2 air medals, which each one represents 25 air missions in service. And I just don't think he was ever recognized enough, so I always like to mention that. And it's one of the reasons the Fresh Start program is so successful, his experience as a veteran during wartime, then coming back, and his experience on the streets. He's able to connect to these veterans in a very special way, and that's really at the core to our success with our veterans is Sam's leadership. So, Sam.
Thank you all very much. Never in my life did I think when I was in Vietnam in 1965 that I would have all these important people concerned about what's going to happen to us, you know. It's been a trying time from 1963 to 2022, you know, during the times when servicemen weren't popular, you know, and then I had my own race saying that I was Uncle Tom, and I had other people who said that I was a second-class citizen, and I walked steady through it all because I believed in America. I believed in the concept. I believed in the theory. I believed in the promise and the mission, you know, and I wasn't going to let nobody take that away from me. That was in my head. And so 22 years ago, I got clean and sober, and I decided to just throw myself all the way in and commit myself for the rest of my life to doing well unto all men, not just veterans, but all men. And let them all know that we're just like them. We've just been doing something different. And so I'm committed to Metropolitan Fresh Start House, and I'm also committed to all the support that I'm getting in. I'm looking at you guys in it. I'll never forget this day, right? And I'm hoping that we can partner and make America great again, for real. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Mark. Congratulations again. Supervisor Stephanie.
Thank you, President Walton. And thank you, Supervisor Marr, for all you've done for veterans and for co-sponsoring or co-hosting today's Commendations with me, and to your amazing honorees. It's just been an honor to work with you on legislation for our vets. During Veterans Month, we honor those who have worn the uniform of our nation and who have selflessly served their country throughout our history. Serving in the military, as many of you know, is not an easy endeavor. It demands sacrifice, courage, and commitment. It requires generations of service members willing to go to distant lands to, as the Korean Memorial in Washington, D.C. says, defend countries they never knew and a people who they've never met. I have a special place in my heart for our veterans and have always been in awe of their sacrifice and commitment to our country. When I was sworn in as supervisor in January of 2019, I told the story of my dad's service in Vietnam as a lieutenant in the Army, his reaction when he and I went to the Vietnam Memorial when I was 16, and the toll it has taken on him. His experience was one that so many veterans share. It sickens me to know that there are many veterans who don't receive the service they need and deserve. It shouldn't be so difficult to pass laws at the federal level to provide health care to the 3.5 million veterans who were exposed to toxic burn pits in Afghanistan and Iraq. Yet the Honoring Our Pact Act, a bipartisan effort, was held up for partisan reasons, finally passing after unnecessary delays. And when Congresswoman Slotkin from Michigan, a veteran herself, introduced a bill to connect veterans with the VA as they transition to civilian life, known as the Solid Start Program, this bipartisan bill was once again hijacked because of a 16-word provision in the bill that read like this: providing women veterans with information that is tailored to their specific health care and benefit needs. Something so innocuous, something that the VA does, but the actual reason for that 11th hour opposition was because of abortion. They turned a veterans bill into something about abortion and made it controversial. And specifically, their provision that women veterans should have no access to abortion, even when in the cases of rape, incest, or when the life of the mother is at risk. None of that bill was controversial, none of it was objectionable, and they made it into something political. The bill finally passed, but not before veterans once again were put on the back burner. We should be tripping over ourselves to take care of those who serve in the military and when they are out. They give their lives for this country, and for what we all owe them is more than just gratitude. We owe them the opportunity to thrive. And it is why I am so thankful to have organizations here in the city like Swords to Plowshares that provide support to the veterans who call San Francisco their home. I got a little emotional over my dad. He has Lewy body dementia, and I've always said that I truly hope that the first memories that were erased in his mind were the memories of war. But he's still here with us, and he served his country honorably. And I want to recognize somebody else who has. Kenyon, come on up. Colleagues, today I have the privilege of honoring Kenyon Wingo, U.S. Army veteran who currently works as a peer specialist for other veterans at Swords to Plowshares. Kenyon, an Oakland native, served our country for 10 years. He was first posted at the former Oakland Army base and was part of the 689th Quartermaster Company working in mortuary affairs. He was also stationed at Fort Belvoir in Virginia and worked as a cartographer and was based at Fort Lee in Virginia. Kenyon enlisted in the military just after he finished high school. Although he had an opportunity to attend Morehouse College, he chose to follow in the footsteps of his father, who served in the Navy for 25 years. And his story about why he chose the Army over the Navy is very fun. And his grandfather and uncles also were service members. Kenyon began his career with Swords as a program monitor and served in that role for close to 7 years. As many of you know, Swords to Plowshares helps veterans in so many different ways, with mental health services, legal help, job placement and training, housing, and opportunities to socialize with other veterans. In August of this year, after completing a 12-week peer counseling training course with Code Tenderloin, Kenyon became a peer specialist and now serves 108 veterans at the Veterans Academy in the Presidio in District 2, run by Swords to Plowshares. Kenyon works tirelessly to provide high-touch support for the veterans at the Academy. He provides one-on-one services, organizes group activities, and he accompanies veterans to their appointments. Most importantly, he is a friendly face and someone who the veterans trust and respect. His colleagues have shared that Kenyon is someone who consistently goes above and beyond, always shows up with a smile on his face, and who is extremely dedicated to his work. Kenyon, it is truly an honor to meet you today and to be able to honor you in front of everyone. I thank you for your service to our country and for your continued service to the veterans at the Academy. Thank you.
I don't know what to say, but thank you. And also thank you to Swords to Plowshares for giving me this opportunity as a veteran to help veterans. That's all I can say. Also, I know my veterans ain't here, but I'd like to thank them also, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here, period. So, also, the story I was going to say about why I went into the Army instead of the Navy. Me and my dad was sitting down talking, and he's like, you need to go into the Navy. I'm like, Dad, there ain't no women in the Navy. He was like, well, there's women on the ship. I'm like, I'm not sitting on no ship for 6 months and there ain't no women on there. Well, when you pull into port, you could go see a woman. I'm on base, Dad. There's a woman already there. But he was my inspiration. He was the reason why I went into the military, and this is why I proudly serve the U.S. Army, and why I'm very ecstatic that I'm serving and working with Swords to Plowshares. Thank you.
Congratulations again, Kenyon. Thank you, Supervisor Stephanie. Supervisor Preston.
Thank you, President Walton, and thank you, Supervisor Marr and Supervisor Stephanie, for your words and for putting all of this together today. Very much appreciate it. Colleagues, today I am honored to recognize Del Seymour, founder of Code Tenderloin, a Vietnam veteran, for his service and his dedication to our city. Del was born in Chicago, Illinois. He was active in politics and worked for Jesse Jackson in Operation Breadbasket in the early 60s. He organized with the Student Nonviolent Action Committee when he was a young teenager, focused on integrating businesses in the South, and marched with Martin Luther King Jr. when they were trying to integrate the Chicago school system. After graduating high school, he went to seminary to be a priest, but left that path, and soon thereafter he was drafted to the United States Army in 1967. Del was stationed in Cambodia during the peak of the Vietnam War, and he worked as an evacuation medic from 1967 to 1969. After his tour of duty, he moved to Los Angeles and became a firefighter, paramedic for the Los Angeles Fire Department for 10 years while raising his 2 daughters as a single father and running his own construction business. Del moved to the Bay Area about 30 years ago, and it was here in San Francisco where he began an 18-year journey struggling with homelessness and addiction. It was an afternoon in Bodecker Park where the San Francisco Christian Center was doing outreach and came up to Del with a fine men's suit and an invitation to church that Sunday. And after the service, they helped Del get into better housing situation and assisted with other basic necessities, treating him with respect and helping him regain his dignity. Shortly after, in 2011, Del started Tenderloin walking tours, and then in 2015, Del founded Code Tenderloin, offering job readiness training and coding boot camps for folks who are marginalized by society, people who are homeless, people in recovery, people battling addiction, formerly incarcerated folks, or folks who just need a fresh start for whatever reason. During the early months of the pandemic, Code Tenderloin became an invaluable resource hub for the entire community by distributing food, hand sanitizer, gloves, masks, and organizing COVID testing and COVID vaccines. Because Del and the staff and volunteers at Code Tenderloin had spent years building trust in the community, they were able to pivot quickly and provide rapid response during the emergency, serving many of the most marginalized and hard-to-reach people in our city. Code Tenderloin also rose to the challenge of helping to staff the Tenderloin Linkage Center, later known as the Tenderloin Center, after a state of emergency was declared. Del has devoted the last 27 years to providing outreach and support for veterans in the Bay Area. He served on the board of directors of Swords to Plowshares for the last 10 years. And as you know and have heard from other honorees, Swords to Plowshares is a crucial nonprofit that supports over 3,000 homeless, low-income, and at-risk veterans annually to access health care and counseling, housing support, and financial stability. One thing that is consistent in Del's work over the decades, from his days in the Army till now, And what is consistent is the notion of service, not just as an idea, but in his every pursuit. Dell's one of the most committed, generous, kind, and smart people that I have had the privilege to work with ever in San Francisco, and especially since the Tenderloin was redistricted into District 5. It is no wonder that so many people in the Tenderloin refer to Dell as the mayor of the Tenderloin. So Dell, thank you for your service in the Army as an evacuation medic, your continued service to veterans after your military service, and for your ongoing service to the Tenderloin community. We are inspired by your life path and your impact, and grateful for your tireless dedication to helping those who are most vulnerable in our community. On behalf of the Board of Supervisors, I'm proud to honor you today as part of our Veterans Day celebration and invite you up to say a few words.
You know, I feel a little strange being in this room, because as a lot of y'all know, when I'm in this room, I'm yelling and screaming and fussing and cussing and everything. So that's a testament. Y'all must be doing okay. If you don't see me coming down here to these meetings, y'all doing okay. So, Supervisor, I think when your term is up, I want to hire you as my introduction person. You did a wonderful job. You know, when I got to San Francisco, I thought my tent days was over. My green tent day was over. All I did was turn in my green tent to a red tent. Two words that should not go together in the English language is unhoused and veterans. Those words don't fit at all. We have the privilege of being one of the better jurisdictions in the country to deal and manage with our homeless veterans, thanks to organizations like we're presented here today, thanks to you all, thanks to the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing. We've been able to maintain, even through coordinated entry, we're still able to maintain some type of priority and care and love for our men and women that did serve. You know, we went across that water without questioning. We didn't question nothing. You said go, we went. Now when we come back home, we don't have that same recourse. And that's what we need to get better at, is recognizing the work and the duties that we did. You know, I was a medic, combat medic. I did not have to fight because I was a medic. My fight started when I got on Ellis Street, fighting to put some sheetrock over my head. Simple sheetrock is simple, it's cheap. Why can't we put that over the heads of veterans? And I'm saying that, and we just went out and toured the new veterans facility by Swords and Plowshares on Treasure Island. Luxury. I'm talking about top-of-the-line luxury, which is the respect and dignity that we give our veterans here in San Francisco. We don't play in San Francisco. When we do get our veterans house, it's with dignity. And that's the same thing we serve with dignity, so we know what that word means. We got our wonderful Ed Lee apartments on 3rd Street, right across from the Chase Arena, and you're talking about a good neighborhood. What a great neighborhood. What a great payback to the veterans that are able to live there. Can live in a wonderful neighborhood, go strolling on the water. That's what it's about. So I'm not here to complain about anything. I'm here to be proud of these organizations, proud of my brothers and sisters that are sitting here behind me in this room. And this is like what we call a stand down. We're away from the chaos. No one's here to celebrate war today. We're here to celebrate coming home. And we're here to celebrate facilities like we have here, including the City Council, for doing their duty. So thank you much. And Supervisor Preston, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you.
Congratulations again, Dale, and thank you, Supervisor Preston. Supervisor Ronan?
Thank you so much, and also want to extend my thanks to Supervisor Stephanie and Mara for this wonderful event today. It is my great pleasure to honor a lifelong constituent and Army veteran, Maria Cecilia Moreno. Cecilia has served the community for over 33 years. She was born in Costa Rica and moved to Bernal Heights with her family as a child. She left San Francisco when she joined the Army at age 18 and served abroad in Germany for several years. Like other teenagers who joined the armed services, Cecilia saw the Army as an opportunity to leave troubles at home. In the Army, Cecilia learned what it is to serve, and she has been serving her community, our community, ever since. Upon returning home to San Francisco, Cecilia entered motherhood and raised her 3 children in Bernal Heights. She first began volunteering at Horace Mann Middle School, where she co-facilitated parent support groups for both English and Spanish-speaking parents. Then Cecilia went on to work as a substance abuse counselor at Mission Council on Homeless Prenatal. Cecilia worked as a homeless services manager for Dolores Street Community Services for nearly 20 years. And most recently, Cecilia worked as an employment specialist and community health navigator. Cecilia's career-long dedication to serving her community and her country is no small feat. She has helped hundreds of community members who have struggled with homelessness, substance use disorder, and mental health issues. Anyone who has done direct services for even a few days can tell you how challenging this work is, and Cecilia has done this work for over 30 years. Thanks to her hard work and dedication, so many of these community members today are housed, healthy, and on the road to recovery and stability. Cecilia has an incredible capability to relate to the people she helps while also teaching them to empower themselves to navigate bureaucratic systems. She never gives up on her clients while also always holding them accountable. And that is what has made her such an effective case manager. In addition to her work, Cecilia adopted her baby granddaughter, the beautiful Chloe, who's right next to her, a few years ago. It wasn't a role she planned for, but she took the responsibility of raising another child with so much love and strength. And today, Chloe's a thriving young girl under Cecilia's care. We love you, Chloe. District 9 and our city are incredibly lucky to have veterans like Cecilia, and I just want to shout out Jesus Barragan, who's sitting next to Cecilia, her lifelong dear friend and partner, and I just want to thank him because he is also a veteran. We are all so much better because of the work that Cecilia has dedicated herself to. Thank you, Cecilia, for your service and for all you have done for our community. Congratulations. We love you.
Oh, that's so sweet. So much, Hillary, and
Can you please speak into the microphone?
thank you so much, Hillary and Board of Supervisors, for this wonderful honor. I'm very honored to receive this award for my military service. I just wrote a few words because I don't want to forget what I want to say. But my service in the military has really prepared me to be of service in my community and the work that I do in the front line trenches with the homeless population. And I really enjoy my work. I work with so many veterans as well, and I understand their needs, and I'm just really happy that I'm able to do this work. I feel very satisfied and love that I have my little daughter, Chloe, and my best friend, Jesus, who's right behind me, is also a veteran. So I'm just truly honored, and thank you so much for this award.
Congratulations again, Maria. Thank you, Supervisor Ronan. Supervisor Safai.
Thank you, President Walton. Colleagues, today I'd like to start off, as many of you have, as thanking all those among us who, despite the risk and sacrifice, raised their hands to serve and defend our country. and our veterans, our active service duty members, reservists. Your service has helped keep our country and our citizens safe, and we really, really appreciate the work that you've done. I'm happy to honor today, and some of you have mentioned the organization in your speeches, but specifically the Executive Director, Michael Blecker, of Swords to Plowshares. One of the reasons why is they've been doing tremendous work under the radar in District 11, serving our veterans out there, and we wanted to recognize them, and they've done such tremendous work all over San Francisco for so many years, as many of you know. He has been associated with Swords to Plowshares since 1976, only 2 years after it was started in 1974 by 6 Vista veterans. He served his country as a sergeant for the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War. Since his time in the Army, he's promoted and protected the rights of veterans through advocacy, public service and education, and partnership with local, state, and national entities. Our community appreciates Michael Blecker for all the work he has done for veterans over the years and for San Francisco. He's been a true leader and a voice and an advocate for veterans for decades. His hard work and compassion for others inspires all of us and has inspired many people in this room today. In addition, I'd like to honor his organization, Swords to Plowshares. Their work in the community as a community-based nonprofit organization that provides counseling and case management, as well as employment training, housing, and benefit assistance to more than 2,000 veterans and homeless and unhoused individuals, low-income veterans, annually in San Francisco. Since the 80s, the organization has focused on homeless veterans. And I think President Walton is also going to say a few words about Swords. Is that right?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I thought you were. That's what I was informed. But in 2005, Swords to Plowshares established the Iraq Vet Project to identify the needs and shape policy after affecting Iraq and Afghanistan veterans for years. In 2007, they began providing professional legal VA benefit claims assistance and these new era veterans and their families. As the Swords to Plowshares founders intended, the organization has helped their peers by offering resources and providing safety. And so, Mr. Blecker, if you'd like to come up, maybe you can say a couple words, but now I'd like to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an honor to hear all the vets so far. It's been great. So yeah, it's just been a journey, right? And you know, it's hard to talk about the past without thinking about the present, and most importantly, what lies ahead. So we're very busy at Swords. You know, we've always pride ourselves in being out there where the vets are, right? Over the years, over the course of time that we've helped vets, and always pride ourselves recognizing that war causes wounds that last beyond the battlefield. And so we have actually felt like medics sort of out in the field there and trying to pull folks in and trying to help them in any way, shape, or form we could do that. And you know, I remember how San Francisco used to get beat up in the press. Well, they're not a very patriotic city. Well, I just want to say that I can't imagine our work and the housing that we've done without the great support of the city and county of San Francisco. I mean, we got to provide housing on the Presidio, on Treasure Island, the Ed Lee in Mission Bay. We have almost 500 units of housing, and the support. None of these projects would have been even close to successful without the support of the city and county. And we've been able to bring resources to bear, right? We've been able to make a case. We've been able to stay on top and make the VA a better deliverer of health care, right? We've stayed on top of key issues for vets who have not had their needs met, such as so many vets who were unfairly kicked out of the service with less than honorable discharges. We cut our teeth on that issue back in 1975. When I first started Swords, that was a key issue. There were so many vets with what we call bad paper, right? Who are not getting the care they needed, not getting the health care, et cetera. So we recognize the need to serve those veterans. And I'm very proud of the work we do, but I guess the most exciting thing is what lies ahead. on Treasure Island, the 104 units we're going to build on Treasure Island. We're going to move some other things around. We're like throwing our shoulders into the city's major effort to continue to address homelessness. We're going to make sure the VA is supported and does the best work it can do, right? And we owe it to our veterans, and we won't let them. We'll never forget to misplace the war from the warrior. All those who serve should be honored. And so it's been my honor, really, over these last 45 plus years to have led swords. So I want to thank you. Thank you so much.
Congratulations again, Michael. Thank you, Supervisor Safai. Supervisor Chan.
Thank you, President Walton. Colleagues, as part of today's commendation, I wanted to offer a posthumous commendation to recognize the extraordinary life, accomplishments, and dedication of George Ishikata, whom I had the privilege of meeting in his capacity as our Veterans Affairs Commissioner. Earlier this year, we did actually send a in memoriam at the Board of Supervisors to his family. But today I thought that it is right to also honor him and his family. I think that oftentimes, not only that veterans suffer when they return home, but I think that impact on their families is also tremendous. So today we actually have Linda DeMary is joining us virtually to accept this commendation on behalf of late Commissioner Ishikata. Colonel George Ishikata, Civil Air Patrol's Pacific Region Commander, San Francisco Veterans Affairs Commissioner, Executive Council member at the Japanese American Veterans Association, and San Francisco's Director of JROTC Instruction, passed unexpectedly on December 30th of 2021. He was 59. Colonel Ishikata was a native San Franciscan and a graduate of Lowell High School, class of 1979. He graduated from San Francisco State University with a degree in speech communications and rhetoric. He received his master's degree from the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College in Military Security Policy and Strategy. Amazing. And his Civil Air Patrol career began in 1977 when he served as a cadet before embarking on a career in the U.S. Army. Over the ensuing 43 years, he served at multiple levels of CAP, helping lead the California's Wings, San Francisco Cadet Squadron 86, one of the California Wings' most successful squadrons, and also at the wing and region levels. Colonel Ishikata retired from the Army as a colonel after 30 years of active service. He served as an Army military intelligence officer, holding sensitive intelligence position at the highest level in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Kosovo. Upon retirement, he was not done. From active duty, Colonel Ishikata assumed duties as the JRTC teacher at Lincoln High School, where he taught, coached, and mentored thousands of students, helping them to become better citizens. As a commissioner, our commissioner, Colonel Ishikata was incredibly dedicated to advancing the work and mission of the Veterans Affairs Commission. In our conversation and also in partnership with this body, this Board of Supervisors, he brought extraordinary insights and wanted to ensure that there was strong awareness and support for local and legislative issues impacting our veterans, including issues like the search for a new VA center. In fact, we have conversation also about how do we support VA hospital because it's hospital located in District 1. We talked about implementation, in fact, with this board, and thanks to Supervisor Gordon Marr, the implementation of park discount legislation for our veterans and veterans housing preference and so much more. So thank you, Commissioner Ishikata and Colonel Ishikata, and of course, thank you to his wife, Lena DeMary, who's joining us today, and really thank you for you and your family for giving to our community and our city. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Chan. Got it.
She's available. Lena, are you logged in?
Yes, I am.
There you go. Would you
Please
like
go.
to say a few words? Lena, would you like to say a few words?
You may be on mute, Lena. And Lena, you may be on mute. And if you're still trying, we cannot hear you.
Okay, we'll try to come back to Lena. Thank you so much, Supervisor Chan. Supervisor Dorsey?
Thank you, President Walton and colleagues. President Biden yesterday declared this November National Veterans and Military Families Month, and I want to thank Supervisors Mar and Stephanie for leading us in this celebration, and to say how grateful I am to join my colleagues in acknowledging and thanking our veterans for fulfilling their patriotic calling and duty to our country. Our communities are strengthened by their presence, experience, and perspectives. Today I have the distinct honor of presenting a special commendation to Ghazwan al-Sharif. Ghazwan was born in Baghdad, Iraq, in 1971 and comes from a family with a diplomatic background. His grandfather was a minister of defense and his father was an ambassador who traveled throughout Europe, which afforded him the opportunity to learn English at an early age. During the fall of the regime in Iraq, Ghazwan knew his calling was to enlist in the United States Army as a translator. His life as he knew it, and his family and loved ones would never be the same again. This great sacrifice also meant that he would no longer be safe in his home country. Ghazwan served in the U.S. Army from 2003 to 2005. During that time, he earned many accolades. He received recognition from the Engineer Brigade for personally making a difference in the reconstruction efforts by advising, teaching, and coaching the Iraqi spheres of influence. He also assisted in negotiating contracts. He had the honor of being a guest speaker for the Iraqi Cultural Awareness Block of Instruction, where his expertise ensured that students were educated on the many contributions the Iraqi people made and continue to make in our society. The awards Ghazwan received are testaments to how he upheld the finest traditions of military service. Things changed suddenly when he was falsely accused of being a spy and was sent to jail and tortured for 75 days. Everything was on the line, yet he pushed forward. He was determined to persevere and prove his innocence. It was later discovered that the accusation was a mistake and that he was sent to Jordan to await the processing of his visa. Once word came from the Pentagon with proof that he was being held in error, Ghazwan was granted asylum to the United States of America and given the chance to fulfill his lifelong dream of living in San Francisco. Ghazwan's heart-wrenching struggle is captured in the film From Baghdad to the Bay. During the filming of this documentary, Ghazwan wasn't ready to talk openly about his sexuality. However, that changed in 2012 when news broke about gay men being targeted and killed in Iraq. These horrible crimes ignited a spark inside Ghazwan, and he then decided it was time to step out and make a difference by sharing a hidden chapter of his story. Ghazwan has since become a pillar of the LGBTQ+ and Middle Eastern communities. He started an ongoing dance party called Ashek for the LGBTQ plus community to have a safe space where they can celebrate their culture and whom they love. This month, on November 18th, Oshchek will celebrate its 8-year anniversary at the Oasis nightclub in South of Market. Oshchek is not only a fun dance party, but also a big supporter of the LGBTQ Asylum Project. Gaswan is also a skilled chef who decided to turn his passion into a career, something that wasn't allowed in his home country. Chef G, which is what Gaswan is called in the kitchen, loves to make people happy with this delicious food, and I can personally attest to the outstanding baklava we had earlier. Through cooking, Chef G found his true passion by infusing hints of Iraqi culture with a twist of Western favors, whether it is serving his country as a veteran or serving the residents of San Francisco with amazing delicacies. Gaswan has always prioritized the need to give back to others. The awards and recognitions that Gaswan has received for his service are still very present in all the things he takes on. His dedication to push forward, to teach, to guide others from his experiences is worthy of admiration and praise. With that, I congratulate Gaswan Al-Sharif with a special commendation. I also want to thank him for his service and all he continues to do for our country and for the city and county of San Francisco. Gaswan, can I ask you to come say a few words for us?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Wow, what a life. Like a movie, right? Oh, wait, it isn't a movie. I want to thank San Francisco, to be honest, because I find my identity through San Francisco. Being yourself is very rewarding. It was not easy, you may know, the culture that I've been born with, to come out. But thank you for recognizing the Middle Eastern North African community. Ashq means love, and it is a big now platform that all Middle Eastern North African LGBTQ plus community come to San Francisco to celebrate themselves, to be truthful to yourself. So thank you so much. Thank you, San Francisco. Thank you, Supervisor. Thank you.
Congratulations, Gaswan, and thank you so much, Supervisor Dorsey. And I do believe we do have Lena on the phone or on Zoom now.
We understand she's on hold, Mr. President.
Do see that? And we will come back.
She just dropped off.
Thank you so much. Supervisor Mandelman.
Thank you, President Walton, colleagues. Today I am offering the District 8 Veterans Month Special Commendation to Bob Dockendorf. Bob was born in Iowa, where he lived until he was deployed to Vietnam. There he served 3 of his 25 years of military service, eventually rising to the rank of captain. Bob returned to the United States in 1968, making San Francisco his permanent home. Today he resides in Diamond Heights, where he remains an active presence in the life of the neighborhood. He's a longtime member of the Diamond Heights Community Association, and beginning in the 80s, served for more than a decade as president of the organization. Bob has long been active in LGBTQ politics. He was a friend and supporter of Harvey Milk, served as the treasurer of Harry Britt's Friends Committee for nearly Harry's entire term on the Board of Supervisors, and supported his race for Congress in 1987, and supported Mark Leno in all of his races. He served as president of the Harvey Milk Democratic Club for 1 term, has served on the board of the Alice B. Toklas Democratic Club, and remains an active member of both clubs. Bob has served on the boards of Theater Rhinoceros, Closet Ball, and Operation Concern, and has been a generous financial supporter of Horizons Foundation, NCLR, GLAD, Frameline, Lambda Legal, the Military Advisory Council of Service Members Legal Defense Network, Open House, and a host of other worthy organizations. Bob has long been a champion for LGBTQ rights, especially within the U.S. military. He served on the board of the Service Members Legal Defense Network, participated in demonstrations and conferences fighting for the repeal of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, and provided counseling and support for individuals serving in the military who had to hide their sexuality to avoid dishonorable discharge. Bob's civic engagement is also extensive. He served on the Veterans Affairs Council from 1989 to 1996 and on the San Francisco Ethics Commission from 1996 to 2000. So for all of his many contributions to the city, the LGBTQ community, and our country, it is my honor to honor and welcome Bob Dockendorf, who is attending remotely.
And I do see Bob is on here.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Dockendorf, if you wouldn't mind, if you can turn on your camera. Or unmute yourself.
There he goes.
We can see you.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you, Supervisor Mandelman and Board of Supervisors, for recognizing those who have served our nation. Many of us thank President Obama for supporting and signing legislation that eliminated Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and Speaker Pelosi for moving the bill to the President's desk. Lastly, please remember the hundreds of brave men and women who, in the past, were wrongly drummed out of the service just for being gay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob, and congratulations again. Supervisor Melgar?
Thank you, President Walton. Thank you, Supervisor Marr and Supervisor Stephanie, for coordinating this. Like you, I also have close family members who served in the military and appreciate both the opportunity and the sacrifice that brings. Today, it is my great honor to present this commendation to one of my favorite constituents and one of the best humans I know. Colonel D. Peter Gleichenhaus. Colonel Gleichenhaus was born and raised in New York, and after graduating from public schools, he attended Blair Academy, Cornell University, and then the United States Military Academy in West Point. He also earned a master's degree in physical education at the University of Wisconsin. Colonel Gleichenhaus served in the U.S. Army for over 30 years. His service included time in Vietnam, first with the infantry and later in the artillery. He was stationed overseas in the Canal Zone and in Germany. He spent a tour of duty in the Pentagon and 2 tours in the Department of Physical Education at West Point. His final assignment on active duty was as the Inspector General for the 6th U.S. Army at the Presidio in San Francisco. He graduated from the Command and General Staff College and then from the Army War College. After retiring from the Army in 1990, he worked in the private sector, and then from 2001 to 2007, he was the Director of Public Works for the city of Daly City in California. Since arriving here in San Francisco in 1985, in addition to all the work that he did in the private sector and as a civil servant, he has been the chairman of the Goodwill Industries. He has served on the boards of the Bay Area Council of the Boy Scouts of America, the Advisory Board of San Francisco State University, the San Francisco Civil Grand Jury, and as the president of the Congregation B'nai Emunah. He was also a member of the San Francisco Graffiti Task Force and the Lake Merced Golf Clubhouse. He has been a leader in the Jewish War Veterans, and he currently serves on the boards of the West Point Jewish Chapel Fund, the Interfaith Center at the Presidio, and the Jewish Community Relations Council, where he spearheaded the establishment of the Hiring Our Heroes Job Fair and Expo for military veterans to provide support and resources to veterans making this transition to civilian life. For his efforts, he received the Distinguished Leadership Award from JCRC in 2018. The Colonel and his wife, Barbara, who is also with us today, live in West Portal in District 7. They have 3 children, 1 career Army officer or colonel himself, and 1 living in San Luis Obispo, and a 3rd living nearby and working at UCSF. They have grandchildren, and I know the Colonel is also very actively involved in their lives and regularly takes them to Giants games. So please join me in celebrating the life and many, many contributions of Colonel Pete Gleichenhaus.
Thank you very much. I accept this recognition on behalf of the thousands of veterans in San Francisco and the hundreds of thousands of veterans of our nation. 2 points that I would make. Our Constitution, which is the basis of our service, has lots of words in it, which are very nice words, goals in many cases, things that we promised to do but have not yet done. Lots of room for advancement, improvement, etc. The words that I have heard today from you supervisors are great words. I would challenge you to remember them as you go forward and take action on activities and programs and policies that affect veterans in this wonderful place where we're privileged to live. Thank you very much.
Congratulations again, Colonel Gleichenhaus, and thank you so much, Supervisor Melgar. I do want to extend a celebratory congratulations to all of our honorees today, as well as a thank you for your service. We most certainly appreciate all of you, and we're proud to be able to honor you at today's Board of Supervisors meeting. Madam Clerk, this concludes our 2:30 p.m. recognition of commendations, and we are now going to our first 3 p.m. order of business, items 34 through 37.
Items 34 through 37 comprise the public hearing of persons interested in the determination of exemption from environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act issued as a categorical exemption by the Planning Department on April 13th, 2021 for the proposed project at 45 Bernard Street for a proposed renovation of a 3-story, 4-unit apartment building. Item 35 is the motion to affirm the categorical exemption from further environmental review. Item 36 is the motion to conditionally reverse the department's determination, and item 37 is a motion to direct the preparation of findings.
Thank you, and colleagues, we have a hearing on the appeal determination of exemption from environmental review. I believe the clerk's office received a withdrawal letter.
Yes, Mr. President, from the Upper Chinatown Neighborhood Association.
Thank you so much. We will entertain a motion to file this hearing, approve item 35 and table 36 and 37, I believe, made by Supervisor Peskin, seconded by Supervisor Safai. And before we take a vote on that motion, we must still take public comment. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, the board welcomes testimony on the withdrawal of the appeal of exemption determination and the approval of the project. That would be approval of item 35. And at this time, we are joined by our partners, our interpreters from the Office of Civic Engagement and Immigrant Affairs and Lando and Associates. I ask each interpreter to introduce themselves and the instruction in language on how to connect to the remote system. Beginning with Raymond Borges for Filipino, Agnes Lee for Chinese, and Marty Dickinson for Spanish.
Magandang hapon po. Ito po si Raymond mula sa Office of Civic Engagement, Immigrant Affairs, ay inyong katulong sa wikang Pilipino. Para magpahayag, tumawag po 415-655-0001. Ang meeting ID po natin sa araw na ito, 2488-974-3915. Matapos ito, pindutin ang simbolo ng pandulang ulit para makasama at madidig ang pagpupulong. Kapag nais magpahayag, pindutin po ang star 3 at hintayin pong hudyat na marinig magsalita o marinig ang you have been unmuted. Maaari pong magpahayag sa loob ng 2 minuto. Maraming salamat po. Thank you.
大家好，我係三藩市民政及移民辦事處嘅中文口譯員 Annis， 工作平衡時將提供中文口譯服務。如遠程參與會議公眾人士要表達意見，請撥打415-655-0001之後輸入會議 ID 號碼2488-974-3915，然後再按2次井號鍵。加入收聽會議之後，請再按星號加3號鍵排隊輪候發言。當你聽到提示音 You have been unmuted 已取消靜音，即表示你隨時可以開始發言。公眾人士嘅發言時間不得超過2分鐘。現場參與會議公眾人士將會優先發言。多謝 ，Thank you。
Buenas tardes, soy Marty Dickinson y estaré prestando servicios de interpretación al español hoy hasta las 7 de la noche. Para dar su comentario público, marque el 415-655-0001, seguido por el código de acceso 2488-974-3915, más la tecla del numeral 2 veces. Luego presione el asterisco número 3 y antes de empezar a hablar, espere que el sistema le diga que su línea ha sido activada o en inglés, You have been unmuted. Usted tendrá 3 minutos para dar su comentario. Gracias. Thank you.
All right, we thank the interpreters for being with us this afternoon and know that you know to jump in when someone in language is needing your assistance. All right, for those of you who took any time to come down to the board's chamber to provide your testimony in person, please line up to your right-hand side. Not seeing anyone jump up too quickly, we'll just check in with Kevin Lamb from the clerk's office. Do we have any remote attendees?
Madam Clerk, we have no callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lamb. Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Seeing no speakers, public comment is now closed. On the motion to continue to file this hearing, affirm the category exemption by approving item 35 and table items 36 and 37. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
To approve item 35 and table item 36 and 37, Supervisor Preston. Preston, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai. Safai, aye. Supervisor Stephanie. Stephanie, aye. Supervisor Walton.
Aye.
Walton, aye. Supervisor Chan. Chan, aye. Supervisor Dorsey. Dorsey, aye. Supervisor Mandelman. Mandelman, aye. Supervisor Marr. Marr, aye. Supervisor Melgar. Melgar, aye. And Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. There are 11 ayes.
Thank you. Without objection, the hearing is now filed. Item 35 is approved, and item 36 and 37 are tabled unanimously. Madam Clerk, would you please go to our next 3 p.m. special order items, 38 and 39.
Item 38 is a public hearing scheduled pursuant to a motion number M-22-123. This was approved on July 26, 2022, and continued from September 20th, 2022, for the Board of Supervisors to convene a committee of the whole for a public hearing to hear item 39. The subject matter of item 39 is an ordinance to approve an amendment to the Trans-Bay Redevelopment Plan to increase height and bulk limits on Block 4 of Zone 1 of the Trans-Bay Redevelopment Project area, these items are before the board at this time.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Supervisor Dorsey.
Thank you, President Walton. Colleagues, the project sponsor has requested additional time for the Office of Community Investment and Infrastructure and the sponsor to work on modifications to the project's financing and schedule. Other items related to this project, including the zoning map amendment and the disposition and development agreement, are being held at the Land Use Committee at the call of the chair. The Land Use Committee will need to send the plan amendment ordinance back to the board when OCII and the sponsor are ready to move forward with the legislative process. The Board of Supervisors, sitting as a committee of the whole, will have to schedule a new date for a public hearing on the redevelopment plan amendment after the matter is renoticed as required under state law. So I'd like to make two motions. The first motion is to table item 38, the hearing, and then second, refer item 39, the ordinance, to the Land Use Committee at the call of the chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Dorsey. Do we have a second? Seconded by Supervisor Mandelman on both motions. Seconded by Supervisor Mandelman on both motions. And before we take a vote, we will need to take public comment.
All right, are there any of the members of the public who have joined us in the chamber who would like to provide testimony on this item, the tabling of item 38 and the re-referral of item 39 to the Land Use Committee? All right, Mr. Kevin Lamb, do we have anyone on the remote system?
Madam Clerk, we have no callers in the queue.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lamb. Mr. President.
Thank you. Seeing no one here for public comment and no one on the call line, public comment is now closed. Madam Clerk, on the motion to table item 38 and refer item 39 to land use, can we take that as one motion?
Yes, Mr. President, a joint motion.
Thank you so much. Madam Clerk.
Supervisor Preston. Preston, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai.
Aye.
Safai, aye. Supervisor Stephanie. Stephanie, aye. Supervisor Walton.
Aye.
Walton, aye. Supervisor Chan. Chan, aye. Supervisor Dorsey. Dorsey, aye. Supervisor Mandelman. Mandelman, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Melgar. Melgar, aye. And Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. There are 11 ayes.
Thank you. Without objection, the motion to the motion to table this hearing and refer item 39 to Land Use and Transportation Committee is approved unanimously. Madam Clerk, we are going to come back to the last 3 p.m. special order items 40 and 41 at the very end, and we are now back at roll call for introductions.
All right, we last left off with Supervisor
Walton.
Stephanie, you said for submit, correct? And so then, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, today I have an in memoriam for Mr. Mitz Akashi, owner of Moshi Moshi Restaurant and Dog Patch, and a member of the Potrero Dog Patch Merchants Association. Mr. Akashi, the beloved owner of Moshi Moshi, passed away on the evening of Saturday, October 22nd. Mitz had battled various illnesses with a smile on his face for many years, much to the amazement of many, as he made it to 88 years old. Mitz was in internment camp during the Second World War. Despite that, he served in the U.S. Army and was a veteran of foreign wars. His first restaurant was Nico on Van Ness Avenue in the 70s. Many in the community recall raucous and memorable evenings spent enjoying Mitz's extraordinary hospitality as he wandered around the restaurant with his teapot full of hot sake, making sure no one had an empty cup. Nico's became the hangout for many 49er players during their heyday years, and many famous local musicians spent long evenings there. He brought the teapot with him when he opened Moshi Moshi and Dog Patch in 1986. The first few years were brutally tough as MTA had torn up 3rd Street for years on end, finally trying to get the T and other transportation improvements. Mitz hung in there, and Moshi became a neighborhood institution. Everyone was welcome, and Moshi was a meeting place for locals of all ages and of all races. Mitz made us all feel like old friends. He will be remembered for his generosity, his support of all of our local schools, and of the Japanese Cultural and Community Center in Japantown. His constant smile, his warmth, and his teapot of hot sake. You can remember him best by stopping by Moshi Moshi and having a drink of something in his memory. The rest, I submit.
Thank you, Mr. President. Supervisor Chan.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, on January 3rd, 2023, Congresswoman Jackie Spear will retire from the House of Representatives after 14 years as a Congresswoman. And with that, that is total nearly 40 years as an elected leader for the San Francisco Bay Area. So today I'm introducing a resolution honoring her and her career as our elected and her service. So next Tuesday, Election Day, we will honor her service and declare November 8, 2022 as Jackie Spear Day in the city and county of San Francisco. She'll be joining us either remotely or in person on November 8th. And I look forward to having your support commending her that day. Today, I'm also submitting a request to the Budget and Legislative Analyst for analysis and policy recommendation for the existing and best practices to improve our city's below market rate rental units program, including review of the lottery system, notification protocols, applicants' preferences, rental subsidies, and property development. And finally, colleagues, I am submitting a request to the City Attorney's Office to draft legislation to expand our policy of including labor harmony clauses in all city contracts beyond those currently in construction contracts. This really came from, honestly, for quite some time now, but really from the most recent Felton Institute hearing, thanks to Supervisor Malgar's leadership, frustration from contracts like with the organization like with Felton Institute, but also I want to make reference of another contractor that the city actually has with Non Plus Ultra. It's a contractor that actually was found in unemployment fraud that is dated all the way back to April 2021. And a company like Non Plus Ultra was an event company that leased the Palace of Fine Art, Pier 70, and the Old Mint, and had a lawsuit filed against them by their employees for harassment, bully tactics, and that the staff were fired when they confronted the company, according to the lawsuits, that basically they use the staff to file unemployment claims and using those claim funds to pay the staff. So that just unacceptable, and just cannot imagine what is happening there. But when we learn, what we learn is that existing city contracts do not have any type of protection against the city, really, from the liability for vendors like that, or even, to enforce any type of labor harmony when an organization like Felton Institute is just found not in harmony, simply said, with our labor partners. So we heard and often hear, that San Francisco is a union town, that we're supportive of labor movement. So perhaps it is time for us to make sure that our own policy reflect that determination and commitment, start with ourselves first. So with that, I submit the rest. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Chan. Supervisor Dorsey. Submit, thank you. Supervisor Mandelman. Submit, thank you. Supervisor Marr.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, I have one item for introduction today, and I just wanted to say, following our special commendations for Veterans Month and Supervisor Malgar's honoree Peter Gleichenhaus's call for us to continue to do what we can to support our veterans, I'm introducing an ordinance called the Military Leave Pay Protection Act today, and this will show that we value our San Franciscans that are currently serving in uniform. In our city, we have approximately 2,000 San Franciscans serving as reserve officers in 5 branches of the United States military and the National Guard. These are workers across all occupations and industries and of all backgrounds who have also made the personal commitment and sacrifice to continue serving our country in our communities through the Military Reserve Corps. Military reservists are deployed to overseas missions, but also increasingly as critical responders to domestic emergencies, including natural disasters. National Guard reservists in particular have been deployed and have played a critical role in responding to increasingly severe wildfires in California and also the COVID-19 pandemic. And notably, the National Guard reservists also defended our federal and state capitol from right-wing extremists following the 2020 election. Because military reservists and National Guard personnel serve on a part-time, on-call basis, they are likely to be employed in the civilian sector and face income insecurity and financial stress because they have to leave their jobs temporarily for training and may be called up for duty on short notice and lose income from their civilian job. San Francisco workers who are making a personal commitment and sacrifice by serving in our military reserve shouldn't have to suffer income loss due to this service. State and local laws protect the income and employment security of military, reserve, and National Guard personnel who are public employees. Under California Government Code and California Military and Veterans Code, public employees get up to 30 days of pay while on military leave each year. And the San Francisco Administrative Code also grants 30 days of pay while on military leave in each fiscal year. In addition to our state and local government, some private sector employers, notably Salesforce, the largest employer in San Francisco, also provides military leave pay for its employees who are military reserve and National Guard personnel for up to 12 months, which is very commendable. And while some private employers, such as Salesforce, have stepped up, military reserve and National Guard personnel in the private sector have far fewer protections, which is why I am introducing the Military Leave Pay Protection Act to protect our private sector military reserve and National Guard personnel. The Military Leave Pay Protection Act would require employers with 100 or more employees to pay the difference between the military and civilian pay of an employee on military leave for up to 30 days each year. This mirrors the 30 days protecting public sector employees and ensures that military reserve and National Guard personnel are not income burdened by their service to their community and country. I would like to thank co-sponsors Supervisors Melgar, Dorsey, and Preston, Deputy City Attorney Vicki Wong, One Vet, One Voice, Jenny Perez, the Veterans Affairs Commission, especially Commissioners Ikram Mansouri, Stephen Martin Pinto, Nicholas Rusinoff, Hanley Chan, Courtney Ellington, Joey Baba, and Bill Barnacle for their work on this. And finally, I'd like to acknowledge my legislative aide, Alan Wong, for his work on it. And Alan, as you know, is a National Guard officer himself. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Marr. Supervisor Melgar.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Supervisor Chan, for talking about the situation with the Felton Institute. We had a hearing that I wanted to talk to you about in anticipation for our next steps with the situation at the Budget and Finance Committee. The committee members, Supervisor Chair Ronan and Supervisor Safai, were shocked, really, about the refusal of the Felton management to appear and answer the most simple questions about the situation. It was downright disrespectful to this body and to the taxpayers who fund this organization. And, you know, in thinking about our next steps and seeing how Felton receives 95% of its funding from public sources and most of it from the city and county of San Francisco, I think the level of accountability that, you know, is required is just a basic transparency. So I'm drafting a letter of inquiry to the CEO of Felton Institute, Al Gilbert, and to the Department of Public Health and the Office of Early Care, who hold the bulk of the contracts with Felton. And I'm requesting an accounting of funds and staff time to see if city funds have been used for union busting attorneys, propaganda, coaching, organizing of the opposition. This is because the Felton Institute entered into a card check neutrality agreement in 2019. Interfering with organized labor's actions or information would violate this neutrality agreement, and it is not how we want the city's money spent. So please stay tuned to you know, what will happen in this saga with local 1021, and I expect that I will have to involve all of you at a hearing at a subsequent time and use our powers to compel the Felton Institute to come to the table in good faith and negotiate, keeping to their neutrality agreement. The rest I submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Melgar. Supervisor Peskin.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, most of the stuff I will submit, but I do want to speak to a new initiative that I would like to undertake, and today I'm asking the City Attorney's Office to work with me in my office to draft a new section of the Administrative Code as it relates to the training of our many commissioners. We have vested in this and previous ballots and in our charter, although it's not the be-all and end-all, in creating a number of new commissions. And as chair of the Rules Committee, I have noted over time that many of the commissioners, including reappointed commissioners, don't know all of the powers and authorities of the commissions that they sit on, much less do they receive any training about the subject matter that in many cases they are not versed in. I was amazed when we realized when we were reappointing a planning commissioner and appointing a new planning commissioner a few weeks ago. Those were forwarded to this board and the board approved them, that those individuals did not even know that the secretary to the commission actually served at their pleasure and was their employee in the same way that the clerk of this board is the employee of this body. I noted and was actually quite pleased that the president of the Board of Appeals, Rick Swig, took it upon himself to actually start developing a curriculum for the Board of Appeals and their 5 members, and I've reviewed that and thought that we would benefit as a city from codifying training that can be given by the city attorney's office, what that curriculum should include, as well as what specific curriculum should exist at each and every commission. So the big rules of the game, what the powers and authorities are, as well as what the subject matter is. And I've been watching actually Public Works as they have been, for the first time in over 100 years, going through the process of acculturating to a commission and trying to figure out what to explain to a commission as to what they do. And I think we could all benefit if this was actually something that was done consistently over time, requiring departments to actually have written curriculum that can be updated over time. So to that end, I will be working with the city attorney's office on drafting an administrative code provision that will provide such, and the rest, Madam Clerk, I will submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Peskin. Seeing no other names on the roster, Mr. President, that concludes the introduction of new business.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. We are now at public comment.
At this time, the Board of Supervisors welcomes your general public comment. We will first hear a comment from those present in the chamber and then from those who have joined us remotely. The telephone number and meeting ID is published on the agenda. It is streaming on your screen. After you enter the information, you should press the pound symbol twice. You'll have joined the meeting. You will hear the discussion, but your line will be muted. Press *3 to get yourself in line to speak, and then listen carefully for you have been unmuted. That is your cue to begin speaking your comments. Earlier, we did have our interpreters introduce themselves and the service that they provide. They do know to jump in when someone needing their services appears either in person or remotely. During general public comment, you may speak to the minutes as presented. Items 46 through 48, these are the items for consideration on the adoption without committee reference calendar. And whether or not this board should enter into closed session and specifically for the settlement of the Laguna Honda contract. And so with that, I will indicate to the members of the public who are currently in the chamber. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board during general public comment? Please line up on your right-hand side. And we are setting the timer for 2 minutes. If there's anyone who would like to address the board, please line up on your right-hand side. Otherwise, we will go to the remote system quickly. Please, ma'am, could you step up to the podium? There is a clock on the podium. You'll see that it begins, gives you 2 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you. Is this for Laguna Honda?
This is general public comment specifically. There is an item on our agenda which will have the Board of Supervisors enter into a closed session. Your comments, if you're speaking on that matter, should just be, should the board go into closed session or not, save the merits for the public hearing, which is happening at the end of general public comment. So the merits for Laguna Honda, the matter that you're here for, this is not the appropriate time to speak about Laguna Honda. We will have a public hearing after general public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. My name is Ron Fong. I'm a native San Franciscan, and I'm here tonight today because we don't talk about Bruno. No. We don't talk about Bruno because today Bruno is my code word for lung cancer. I'm here to advocate tonight that you would pass a resolution recognizing November is Lung Cancer Awareness Month. And just like AIDS crisis, we didn't talk about Bruno because it was stigmatized. And just like the HIV crisis, we didn't talk about Bruno because most of the people who caught the disease died within a year. And that's what lung cancer is about. We need to talk about Bruno. We need to talk about that lung cancer kills twice as many women as does breast cancer. That lung cancer kills twice as many black men or black people as does any other cancer type does against the black people in America. And this is wrong. It kills 356 Americans every day. Every day. It's an airplane crash. So we need to talk about Bruno, and I want to talk about that to ask you to pass that resolution. My wife, Joan Fong, was president of the Jack Lee Fong Insurance Agency in North Beach. She died at age 59 because she caught lung cancer. Her doctor said, "You don't look sick. You can't possibly have lung cancer. You never smoked." But she did. She never smoked, and she had lung cancer. So today, anyone can get lung cancer. Thank you. And I gave you guys a blue sheet, I think, that talks about symptoms of lung cancer. And so you may not have symptoms, but if you do, go see your doctor. And so whether you vote red or blue, or however you vote this November, whether you're an athlete or not, you can get lung cancer, young or old. So thank you again. This is a white ribbon. It's made by wood, made out of hand, to show the love for lung cancer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron Fong, for your comments. Are there any other members in the chamber who would like to address the board during general public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll head over to the remote system. Do we have any callers in the queue, please? Welcome, caller. All right, you might be muted. Unattended. Okay, let's go to our next caller, please. I think we have 2 callers in the queue. Welcome, caller.
Hello, this is Michael Petrellis calling. I first want to remind the board that they enjoy only a 12% approval rating, according to a San Francisco Chronicle poll. That is outrageous that your approval rating is only at 29%. I am again calling for the board to put 15 minutes of general public comment at the start of every meeting, as is done at the city councils in Berkeley and Oakland. I next want to discuss the Prop G calendars. This law requires all members of the board to keep a detailed calendar of meetings, things discussed, and who you've met with. Unfortunately, in my survey, 5 of you have not given me any Prop G calendar that I've requested. Indeed, the president of the board, Chairman Walton, claims he doesn't have a Prop G calendar. Then Stefani, Marr, and Dean Preston have also given me nothing in 2 weeks' time of their Prop G calendars. So, complaints have been filed with the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force against Walton, Stefani, Marr, and Preston for violating the Prop G calendar law. This lack of release of your calendars shows an incredible disrespect of the public. You're violating open government laws. And again, you have only a 12% approval rating from the public. So please release your calendars today, and I'd appreciate receiving them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petralis, and for the record, it's pronounced Supervisor Stephanie. All right, Mr. Lamb, do we have any other callers in the queue, please?
Hello, my name is Liam Xavier. I apologize for the wind. I'm standing outside right now. And I'm just calling to
I'm going to pause the
board.
timer for the caller. Caller, if you don't mind. We're having a very difficult time hearing you. I'm not sure if your television is echoing in the background, but please speak directly into the phone so we can hear you. Thank you. I'll resume your time.
Okay, is this better?
Yes, a little bit better. You have 1 minute and 59 seconds left.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. I'd just like to remind the board that it's very important for everyone to fight against transphobia and to stand up for trans rights, trans kids, trans adults. It's all related to abortion rights, body autonomy. The fight against trans people that's currently happening with the GOP is related to the fight against women's autonomy as well, with abortion, amongst fascism and other things. And a little story about why having a bunch of cops everywhere is not the problem solver is because I live in D6. One of the most, I see cops everywhere, urban alchemy everywhere. And just this past week, we're walking down Market Street, and my trans wife experienced a hate crime where someone called her tranny and tried hitting her with a skateboard, and I was able to intervene and block that attack. And it just doesn't matter how many cops you have because cops don't prevent transphobia. We need leaders to be leaders. We need you guys to be leaders and publicly denounce transphobia and say that you will protect trans people. And of course, everyone else as well. But trans people are currently the most vulnerable right now. It's a whole national thing. So, thank you for listening. Bye.
Thank you for your comments. We currently have 9 callers who are listening and 1 caller in the queue. If you're one of the 9, you should press *3 now. Otherwise, we'll take this to the very end. Welcome to our next caller.
Hello, I'm calling to urge the Board of Supervisors to please consider the fact that the Castro has been in limbo since Another Planet Entertainment announced the management of the Castro Theater. There's been only 1 public meeting held by Another Planet, but no meetings held by our Supervisor Mandelman. I'm calling to urge there to be a discussion and an update on the use of the Castro Theater going forward. No one is against a more dynamic use of the space. No one is for film only. What we are against is the destruction of a historical landmark's interior. So I'm calling to urge Supervisor Mandelman and the board as a whole to please allow public input into Another Planet's current plan to desecrate the interior of a cherished queer public historical landmark. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Lamb, do we have another caller in the queue, please? Welcome, caller.
Hi, this is Bree Chung, District 5. I am representing over 50 neighbors from District 5 of Grove House, which is operated by Baker Place's Positive Resource Center, PRC. We're concerned that Baker Place's PRC is receiving significant taxpayer funds to provide subpar services to program participants, while also being a constant source of stress and trauma for Grove House neighbors, providing a home-like environment for individuals in crisis.
Ma'am, I'm going to have to pause your
PRC
time. I'm pausing your time. If you're speaking about the Baker's Place's contract, it is on our agenda. It is not available for your public comment today. That has already been satisfied in committee. Would you like to make
Oh, I don't know
other
anything about
comments?
that. I'm sending something, this is completely different. I'm not responding to that. I'm responding to, this is 50 of my neighbors and I have a letter that we are submitting requesting an investigation.
Okay, we're happy to take your letter. Please proceed.
So I can continue my comment?
Yes, I'll restart your, you
Okay.
have 1 minute and 23 seconds left.
Thank you. Grove House has been closed for 19 months. It should remain closed and should be sold in order to recoup the funds that Baker Place's PRC has misused. We request an investigation into, number 1, the purchase of Grove House property, 2, program operations and finances, 3, program outcome metrics, 4, utilization of emergency services, 5, participant demographics, including whether sexual offenders or individuals with violent backgrounds have been program residents, and that Megan's Law might pertain, given that Grove House is within 500 feet of 3 schools. What individuals and agencies are responsible for referring individuals to Grove House for admission? Did Lisa Pratt refer individuals to Grove House from her position as the city's director of jailhouse services while she was also receiving a salary from Baker Places? We're submitting this letter and request to Mayor Breed, Office of Housing and Community Development, Office of the City Attorney, Department of Public Health, Behavioral Services, and SF Behavioral Health Commission. This letter is signed by over 50 adjacent neighbors from this one block. We ask for your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Brea Chung, for your comments this afternoon. Mr. Lamb, do we have any other callers in the queue, please?
Madam Clerk, we have no more callers in the queue.
Thank you very much. Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Seeing no more speakers, public comment is now closed. Madam Clerk, we do have representatives from the Department of Public Health that are now on Teams, so we will go back to item number 27.
Yes, and just for the record, for the public who entered late, item 27 was called. It is before the board. It is the retroactive contract for the substance use disorder services. I believe Mr. Rocha is online with us.
Supervisor Mandelman, you had questions?
Well, I guess I do. I mean, we have we have this item that has come to us, which is I guess is being justified in part with an expenditure to an entity that we're not sure is going to be around for a program we're not sure is going to be around. And so the request of my colleagues, Supervisor Safai, is to return this back to the Budget Committee so they can delve more into that. And I guess I'm wondering if DPH can explain what's going on with that email that they sent to the members of the Budget Committee today, and spare them needing to have this returned to committee. Or maybe this should go back to committee.
Deputy
good afternoon, Supervisors. May I speak?
Yes.
Good afternoon. Sorry I'm late to this hearing. I was at the Health Commission hearing earlier. So the request is for this 5-year agreement with intergovernment agreement with DHCS to be reviewed and approved. At stake here is about $248 million that we leverage with the state for reimbursement.
We get what it is. Can I, please? I mean, we get what it is. I mean, and maybe Supervisor Safai ought to do this, but as I understand it, when this was in front of the Budget and Finance Committee, Supervisor Safai had some questions about this, wanted to know exactly how this money was going to get spent, and the exhibit that went, or the attachment that went to explain what this was going to get, what these funds were going to get spent on, included, and I'm not entirely sure how to read the chart, but either $4 million or $1 million for Joe Healy Detox, which is a Baker Place program that we're not even sure is going to be around. So Am I getting this about right?
Right. So we had asked for a list of potentially funded organizations or programs through this Medi-Cal reimbursement from the state. We got that yesterday. And once we saw Joe Healy Detox, Baker Places, we had a conversation with Dr. Kunis this morning. He said we had some further questions and we're requesting it to go back to committee, and she was perfectly fine with that.
So I guess.
So Supervisor Mandelman, you had questions that you.
So is there any harm from the department's perspective in sending this back to committee?
Deputy Director Rocha?
Yeah, I think we'll further delay the agreement sign-off process with the state.
Supervisor.
So that's the impact.
Supervisor Mandelman.
All right. If DPH wants us to vote against our colleagues, they need to make stronger arguments than that. So I'm not prepared to vote against my colleague, and I will be voting to send this back to committee.
Classic.
Thank you, Supervisor Mandelman.
Classic.
There was a motion
was
made
to
by
send this back to
Supervisor
committee.
Safai,
Seconded by Supervisor Stefani.
seconded by Supervisor Stephanie to send this back to committee.
Budget and Finance.
Budget and Finance. Madam Clerk, on the motion.
On the motion to send item 27 to the Budget and Finance Committee, Supervisor Preston.
Aye.
Preston, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai.
Aye.
Safai, aye. Supervisor Stefani. Stefani, aye. Supervisor Walton.
Aye.
Walton, aye. Supervisor Chan. Chan, aye. Supervisor Dorsey. Dorsey, aye. Supervisor Mandelman. Mandelman, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Melgar. Melgar, aye. And Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. There are 11 ayes.
Thank you. Motion to send this item back to Budget and Finance Committee approved unanimously. Madam Clerk, we'll come back to closed session items 44 and 45 after the for adoption without committee reference agenda. Would you please call items 46 through 48?
Items 46 through 48 were introduced for adoption without reference to committee. A unanimous vote is required for resolutions on first reading today. Alternatively, a member may require a resolution to go on first reading to go to committee.
Supervisor Preston.
Please sever 46.
46. Thank you. I don't see any other colleagues on the agenda, so we will take items 47 and 48, same house, same call. And without objection, these resolution in motion is adopted or approved unanimously. Madam Clerk, would you call item number 46?
Item 46 is a resolution to urge the California State Legislature to amend the State Vehicle Code to impose harsher penalties for sideshows and stunt driving.
Thank you. Supervisor Preston.
Thank you, President Walton. And I just wanted to briefly comment on this item, which I won't be able to support today. I know many people, including the author of the resolution, are concerned about potential dangers that stem from sideshows. I'm also share many of those concerns, and we've discussed that many times at this board over the last few years. These events cause damage to our streets and risk the safety of participants, observers, and bystanders. But that said, I really have not seen any information suggesting that simply increasing penalties for participation in sideshows will help prevent them in the future. I think the thrust of the resolution seems to be reactive rather than preventative. And I also have particular concerns about the provisions seeking to allow the state to withhold vehicle registration unless people can pay fines, which would, in practice, really harm only those who can't afford to pay. And, you know, I think our city has recognized how harmful fines can be in certain contexts, and it's one of the reasons the city, through the Financial Justice Project, has waived certain fines and ended driver's license suspensions when people are unable to pay. Had productive conversations with Supervisor Dorsey's office, both myself and my staff, and we were glad to learn that the resolution is one of a range of different approaches that I believe Supervisor Dorsey is considering to approach this issue. And I look forward to discussing some of the other approaches in more depth as they come up. But as it stands, with a resolution that does not propose street infrastructure or other preventative measures, but instead simply urges stiffer penalties when there's no showing that existing penalties are inadequate, and a resolution that urges withholding vehicle registration based on financial ability, I'm not comfortable supporting the resolution today. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Preston. Supervisor Dorsey?
Thank you, President Walton, and thank you, colleagues. And I always want to respect that we can have philosophical differences and reasonable minds can disagree. But I do think it is important, given that this body, before I was here, did take steps to increase penalties, and to the extent it's not working, we should be doing more. One of the things that we saw a couple of years ago when there was an incident in which 10 drivers were cited by the San Francisco Police Department, all of the perpetrators of this activity were from out of town, and I think more concerning was all of them were between the ages of 18 and 23. These are young, inexperienced drivers who are engaging in very dangerous activity. We have seen injuries and apparent injuries here in San Francisco, and we know that within the Bay Area, some people have lost their lives in these. This isn't the only strategy, and I look forward to working with my colleagues on creative approaches that we can take. But I do think this is an important step to take to ask the legislature to give localities the ability to toughen penalties so that we can discourage this kind of behavior, which is not just a nuisance, but really a public safety risk and threat to our neighborhoods, and especially our neighborhoods that are close to highways. Thank you.
As long as you don't come. Thank you, Supervisor Dorsey. I don't see anyone else on the roster. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on item 46?
Yes, Mr. President. Before I do, I will just state the rule here. Because this section of the agenda is for non-controversial items, typically an item on first reading, as you all know, requires a unanimous vote. But because this item was continued a week, it is no longer unanimous, but the vote threshold is an 8-vote threshold. Okay. On item 46, Supervisor Preston?
No.
Preston, no. Supervisor Ronan? Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai? Safai, aye. Supervisor Stefani? Stefani, aye. Supervisor Walton?
Aye.
Walton, aye. Supervisor Chan? Chan, aye. Supervisor Dorsey? Dorsey, aye. Supervisor Mandelman? Mandelman, aye. Supervisor Marr?
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Melgar? Melgar, aye. And Supervisor Peskin?
Aye.
Peskin, aye. There are 10 ayes and 1 no, with Supervisor Preston in the dissent.
Thank you. By a vote of 10 to 1, this resolution passes. Madam Clerk, would you please call items 40, 41, and 45 together?
Item 40, the Board of Supervisors will resolve into a committee of the whole for a public hearing to hold a public hearing on the Laguna Honda Hospital strategy for recertification and the submission of a closure and patient transfer relocation plan, and to request that the Department of Public Health to present. Item 41. This item is a public hearing on the settlement of the lawsuit filed on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco against the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Item 42, forgive me as I turn pages. Item 44. This item is a closed session for the Board of Supervisors to convene this afternoon for the purposes of conferring with or receiving advice from the City Attorney regarding the settlement of the lawsuit filed by the City against the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And item 45 is the ordinance to authorize the settlement of the lawsuit, which is the subject matter of item 44 in the closed session. These items are made possible due to the approval this afternoon of the motion to schedule the Board of Supervisors to convene the Committee of the Whole for the closed session to consider the proposed ordinance endorsing settlement of the lawsuit.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. And colleagues, we have before us a committee of the whole on Laguna Honda Hospital strategy for recertification and the submission of a closure and patient transfer and relocation plan, as well as the settlement of lawsuit with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Supervisor Melgar.
Thank you so much, President Walton. Thank you, colleagues, for your time, energy, and attention to what is going on at Laguna Honda. As you know, there have been months and months of intense effort from our Department of Public Health, from our mayor's office, from our federal and state delegation working together with advocates and the fierce advocacy of lots of folks in the community, including the Great Panthers, the California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform, Senior Disability Action, Joe Urban, and lots of the families who have loved ones at Laguna Honda who have been tirelessly working to appeal to folks in a position of power to make sure that this beloved institution that is so important to the health network in our city survives and thrives. So what we have today is a culmination of some of the work that has been happening at Laguna Honda. We will hear from Director Pickens, who will tell us about the efforts of the department in working with the staff towards a recertification. But we will also hear what the motion that I put forward last week was to hear about the efforts of our city attorney in the lawsuit against the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services and the outcome of that. So we may, if we all choose, go into a closed session so people have time to just probe deeply into the issues with our city attorney, and then we will come back and may vote to accept the settlement, which will buy us some time in this ongoing saga and will put us in a better place, hopefully, to have the institution continue to receive payments from the federal government until such a time as we are ready to receive the recertification. So thank you so much for your time and attention. I want to thank in particular Mike Farah in my office, who has been doing double duty in working with advocates and with folks in the community, and believe it or not, Jen Lowe, who is on parental leave but is still working really hard to support the community on this issue. So thank you so much, President Walton.
Thank you, Supervisor Melgar, and I believe we have staff present from the Department of Public Health here to present.
Good evening, Supervisors. Roland Pickens, Interim Chief Executive Officer at Laguna Honda Hospital and Director of the San Francisco Health Network, the delivery system for the Department of Public Health. Thank you for inviting me back to provide you an update on the situation at Laguna Honda Hospital. And I'm joined by my colleague, Mr. Baljit Sangha, who is the Chief Operating Officer of the San Francisco Health Network, but like me has been over at Laguna for the last many months supporting the team there. And Mr. Sangha serves as our incident commander for the recertification process, co-incident commander along with Troy Williams, who is our network quality officer. So many of us have been deployed to Laguna to assist in that effort. So we'll go ahead and get started with the presentation. Okay. As you are aware, Laguna is the largest publicly run skilled nursing facility in the country. It's been around for more than 150 years. Was established when Abraham Lincoln was President of the United States. So a long and stellar history. As you also know, we care for people coping with the effects of multiple chronic conditions such as stroke, traumatic brain injury, or other degenerative diseases such as multiple sclerosis. Laguna also is distinguished in having a very robust rehabilitative service line, including physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, and audiology services. And in particular, Laguna provides specialized care like no other facility, having the only monolingual care Spanish and Chinese units in the Bay Area, along with palliative care and the only HIV/AIDS unit and memory care units at skilled nursing facilities in the area. You recall that back in April of this year, Laguna Honda went through a survey. Next slide. Okay. That was a result of Laguna self-reporting 2 non-fatal overdoses. As you're aware, all hospitals in California are required to report to the state when there are unusual or unanticipated occurrences. Luckily, those 2 overdoses were not fatal, and those residents were able to be saved. But nonetheless, after a series of surveys, CMS found that Laguna was not in substantial compliance and removed its status as certified in the CMS programs. Accordingly, that ended federal funding, that decertification effort, which was significant in that CMS provides the vast majority of funding for Laguna, more than $550,000 a day, $200 million annually is the budget supported by CMS reimbursement. Next slide. So since that time of mid-April of the decertification, we've been working very hard towards reattaining certification in CMS. We immediately brought on 2 consulting experts. They've been with us for the last several months, looking at both long-term, intermediate-term, and short-term fixes to the problems that led to the decertification. Our certification expert consultants are leaders in the field. There are 2 organizations. One is called Health Management Associates. They are a national company, and they focus specifically on publicly run healthcare institutions like Laguna Honda, San Francisco General, and others. And then we have the Health Services Advisory Group. They are a quality improvement expert that, in fact, CMS uses around the country to help institutions with their quality efforts. The Health Services Advisory Group, you will be hearing a little bit more about them in your Finance Committee tomorrow, where Mr. Sangha will actually come and present a budget initiative for approval at your Finance Committee tomorrow. Next slide. So as you are very much aware, as a result of that lawsuit filed by the city attorney, the city reached an agreement in principle with CMS and California Department of Public Health on behalf of Laguna Honda. As you've just discussed, that settlement needs final approval by you, along with the mayor, and then final sign-off by CMS. Under this agreement in principle, CMS, as Supervisor Melgar indicated, has agreed to continue paying for resident care at Laguna Honda up until November 13th, 2023, essentially another year from now, if needed that long. This extension provides that assurance of continued payment so that we know we have the resources we need to continue making the improvements and providing the care at Laguna. In addition to that extension of payment, CMS has also agreed to continue the current pause in involuntary discharges and transfers of residents at least until February of 2023. And in addition, CMS in the settlement agreement has the option to further extend the pause depending upon Laguna Honda's ability to demonstrate progress towards making improvements to regain CMS certification. During this pause, resident-initiated transfers and discharges will continue to occur. As you know, it is a right of our residents, if they choose to relocate to another facility, we must comply with that request if we're able to find a safe and appropriate transfer location. Next slide. So I wanted to give you a little more detail regarding some of the work that we have been undertaking. Part of the work that we have been doing and will be doing even more so in support of the settlement agreement is having a quality improvement expert. As I mentioned before, Health Services Advisory Group is one of the CMS quality improvement experts, and they will be working with us to help meet the terms of that settlement agreement. One of those terms is the creation and development of a root cause analysis to help identify issues that led to the decertification and lack of CMS regulatory compliance. Once that root cause analysis is conducted by Health Services Advisory Group, they will then work collaboratively with the staff at Laguna to develop an action plan to meet any of the areas identified in the root cause analysis. It is that action plan that will then influence and help us update our roadmap towards recertification. And that roadmap includes informing us of when we will be ready to submit the application to CMS for recertification. The good news is that Health Services Advisory Group has been on the ground with us since mid-May, and so we are really in a great position thanks to all of the work of the Laguna staff working with those consultants, and particularly working on the fixes that were identified in our first mock survey, number 1, that was completed in July. In terms of that mock survey, you'll recall that we utilized the consultants from both Health Services Advisory Group and HMA to simulate the actual CMS certification process. In doing so, they identified 101 findings related to CMS standards and guidelines. For each of those 100 findings where it was found that there were deficient practices at Laguna, corrective action plans were developed by both frontline staff, the consultants, and leadership. We're happy to report that all 101 of those corrective action plans have been implemented. That represents the orange bar. If you can go to the next 3 slides, slide number 7. So that orange bar represents that all 101 corrective action plans have been implemented. The yellow bar then represents what happens after the implementation, which is a 2-week monitoring process. In this process, staff are required to monitor that the countermeasures or corrective actions that were implemented have been sustained and they are working. But we don't stop there. After that monitoring process, we then have what we call a validation step. That validation step involves a 3-person review panel that comes in, looks at the data from the monitoring, and independently validates that, yes, the fix was sustained and is working and is in place for the long term. So we're happy to report that of those 100% of corrective action plans that have been implemented, all of them either are already in the monitoring phase, some of which have also completed monitoring, have been fully validated, and right now we're at 36% of those that are at fully validated, with the goal of having all of them fully validated by November 30th. Next slide. So with all of this work going on at Laguna, we wanted to be able to really make sure that we were focusing on the most impactful things that would lead towards recertification. You will recall that in April, when that survey of decertification happened, the surveyors at that time identified new issues that had not come up before, particularly issues in the area of infection control and prevention, hand washing, hand hygiene, our staff wearing protective equipment appropriately. So we've established roughly 6 key performance indicators, or KPIs, and we monitor these on a weekly basis. And just want to share with you some of the results. In terms of this first chart, it represents the environment of care. These were some of the areas that led to the decertification. Is the resident neighborhood where they live free from hazards? Are the staff responding to resident call lights when they need help in a timely manner? Is the trash being removed appropriately? Is clean linen separated from dirty linen appropriately? Are medication carts secured appropriately? So you will see our experience over the last almost 2 months. We've working through the consultant set a threshold goal of having 90% compliance on our nursing units. And you can see for the past almost 2 months, we've been at roughly 98 to 100% compliance in the area of environment of care in our neighborhoods. Similarly, the next slide, please, is looking at hand hygiene. You will see also we have a 90% goal threshold, and for the last almost 2 months, we've been over that 90% threshold, many times reaching 100%. And the way we get these numbers is we actually have a staff of clinical observers, rounders, at Laguna 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They go around looking for problems or to make sure that staff are doing things appropriately. And so that's the source of this data. So this comes from observations of trained individuals with a standardized tool for data tracking purposes. Next slide. And then finally, we have our infection prevention and control rounding. So this includes things, for example, our staff wearing masks and other PPE appropriately. Is food stored appropriately? Are the resident units overall clean and orderly? And again, you'll see for the last several weeks and months, we've been over the 90% threshold, closer to 100%. So the good news is many of those findings that led to the decertification in April related to infection prevention and control, we're in a good place with those. So I wanted to share that information with you. Next slide. So as I said, there's a lot of work going on in order to produce not only these examples of our key performance indicators that I've just gone over. We have over 6,000 individual data points that are collected on a weekly basis through all of these observational rounds that feed up into the data that you're seeing here. So a lot of work is going on in terms of making sure that the corrections that we are making are being sustained, and when they're not being sustained, there's actually real-time teaching done by the observers with the staff. I'm also happy to report that the interaction between staff and those observers is actually going well. It was a little rocky at first. Staff really didn't appreciate having people watch what was going on, but through our education process, it's really become, I think, a really collaborative process. Staff are now welcoming the feedback they're getting from the observers, and the observers are actually noting that staff are eager to talk to them, which is a good thing because when CMS comes to do their survey, they will be talking directly with our staff, and we want staff to have a level of comfort and familiarity in talking with surveyors. So we have here listed many of the activities that are going on. When I last came to you, I reported that we went through a month-long complete staff education process in August, where staff were trained on CMS rules and regulations, and we are, I believe, at 100%. That all Laguna staff members have gone through the required 24 hours of training. We have reinstituted leadership rounds so that our leaders can be on the front line with our staff, hearing what their concerns are, trying to help alleviate and address any barriers. We've instituted weekly topic sheets that talk about the hot spots related to what the observers are seeing and how staff can improve compliance. We have partnered with our labor unions. We meet with them 3 times a week, our leadership and union leaders, to make sure we're all on the same page and supporting the recertification efforts. We've also charted 5 different performance improvement projects which are led by our frontline staff, where we've identified systems issues that are getting in the way of compliance. And we've also instituted a very robust organizational change management initiative where we are really addressing staff morale and including staff in initiatives to help us help them to be the best workers they can be. Next slide. Another development is that Laguna Honda, for the first time in its history, has now joined the California Association of Healthcare Facilities, which is a state long-term care nursing home association. And we've already found that to be a valuable association. Laguna is now in touch with its fellow sister institutions, and we have a lot of learning going on. We're pleased to report that the California Association of Health Facilities has a Distinguished Leadership Academy, and they have recently accepted 6 of the staff from Laguna into that Leadership Academy, and this will be an opportunity for the Laguna middle-level managers to really learn core, key, essential leadership skills for running skilled nursing facilities. So we're excited about that. It's a very competitive process, but the California Association of Healthcare Facilities recognized the unique situation that Laguna's in and extended the opportunity for us to have that many participants in the fellowship program. We've also worked with our consultants to revise the hospital's infection control and quality assurance and performance improvement programs. So again, a lot of work that has gone on and will continue to go on up until the point of recertification and beyond. One of our mantras is that we are putting in fixes for the long-term success of Laguna. We are not about doing any kind of quick Band-Aids, that none of us want to ever be in this position again, so we are looking at what is best for the institution in the long run. Next slide. So I wanted to give you an update on the issue of bed reduction at Laguna. We are required to meet all current CMS rules related to skilled nursing. You'll recall that I previously reported that when the new Laguna first opened, the CMS rules in place at that time said that up to 3 patients in a room could share one bathroom. That was back in 2010. In 2016, CMS changed and updated their standards to now say no more than 2 patients can be in one room that share a bathroom. So accordingly, that presents an issue for Laguna Honda. Because when we do sit for recertification, this issue of the 3 versus 2 beds will come up. I want to let you know that currently we are able to meet the no more than 2 patients in a room standard, mainly because of we haven't been doing admissions and the discharges that took place previously. However, we do have those 120 beds in this 3-person configuration. So in order to keep our options open and in order to hopefully maintain those beds, We are keeping those 120 beds on our hospital license, and we'll be working to continue discussions with CMS through the recertification process in hopes that when they do come out for the survey, that they will indeed review and certify those 120 beds. So we don't have a definitive answer on that yet, but it is definitely still at the front of our burner, and we, and I know several others, are working to get clarification on that. But the important thing is we're keeping the beds on our license, we're not taking them off. So that preserves our ability to use them in the future. Next slide. So, we are trying to be as transparent as possible and completely with this process. We are trying to communicate as much as we can to as many stakeholders as we can. We provide recertification updates to the Health Commission at the second meeting of each month, both in open and closed sessions. We provide closure plan recertification and now settlement agreement updates at the Laguna Honda Joint Conference Committee, which is the subsection of the Health Commission that deals specifically with Laguna. Those updates, just like the full Health Commission, are provided both in open and closed session. And as I mentioned before, we meet 3 times a week with our union partners to work with them and to keep them updated on the status of recertification. We also hold a monthly Laguna Honda staff leadership forum where we provide updates and have a question and answer period for staff. And we also do a monthly staff open house at Laguna where staff are able to receive updates and ask and receive questions. And finally, we provide recertification updates on our webpage, and that can be found at lagunahonda.org. So hopefully I've shared with you information as to where we are. Again, we think we're in a good place. This pause gives us an opportunity to just redouble our efforts and focus right now exclusively on recertification without having to divert resources towards trying to transfer patients out. So I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pickens. Colleagues, any questions, remarks? Supervisor Melgar?
A question of clarification, is substantial compliance 90% or is it higher than that?
So the 90% that I talked about in terms of the key performance indicators, that is the compliance threshold that our quality improvement experts told us we should be shooting towards. In terms of substantial compliance with CMS rules, that is, it can be a subjective measure. It depends upon, typically, CMS has, their surveyors have tools, and if they see something that's not compliant, say maybe once while they're surveying, that doesn't really become an issue. But if they see something over and over again, if they, for example, see that staff are not wearing PPE appropriately, then they can say, well, that's substantial noncompliance because it seems to be a systemic issue. It's not just a one-off. So substantial compliance means that from the CMS perspective, that their surveys have assessed that to the best of their ability, you seem to be meeting their standards, but they don't have a quantitative number that represents substantial compliance.
They don't have a number?
No, I mean, they have roughly 200 plus standards, and the question is, do you meet those standards to their satisfaction?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Melgar. Supervisor Mendelman?
Thank you, President Walton, and thank you for all your work at Laguna Honda. One of the things that I have heard is that the challenges we are having at Laguna Honda are related to the inappropriate mixing of different populations of folks who really shouldn't be in the same facility, and that really we need a facility for people who sort of the traditional Laguna Honda population of elderly, significantly folks with significant physical disabilities who need that level of nursing care, and we also need an appropriate adult residential facility for people who may have some of those medical needs but also have significant behavioral health issues. Is that just chatter? Is that real? If that is real, how are we thinking about addressing that?
So that's a great question, and thank you for raising it again. I will definitely say that we definitely need more resources in total, both at the skilled nursing level and at the behavioral health level. I think this decertification, recertification process, and particularly the fact that we have these experts on hand, is a great opportunity to figure out, Laguna is a big institution, and so while residents of those two populations that you described currently have been mixed throughout the institution, I think it's become clear initially, and I am hopeful that some of the recommendations coming down will show that there's an opportunity to cohort or begin to separate these different types of patients. If not in a different facility, at least not on the same unit. One of the best practices within healthcare is the cohorting of similar populations. It increases the competency of the staff because, they're accustomed to dealing with those particular issues. So that has come up, and I know it is being addressed, and I think we're going to see some proposed changes related to not having those populations necessarily in the room next to each other, but definitely I think there's a recognition that individuals with behavioral health needs who also have skilled needs also need to have the opportunity to be at a facility like Laguna. But again, I also think we need more resources either at Laguna or somewhere else also.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Moore.
Thank you, Director Pickens, for all of your leadership on this tremendously important effort to save Laguna Honda Hospital, and also for sharing the updates at these Board of Supervisors Committee of the Whole meetings. Thanks, Supervisor Malgar, for calling these. I appreciated hearing it sounds like very positive updates on the progress on the work that the Laguna Honda team has been doing to to comply with the corrective actions or follow through with them that were identified, and then also the outlines of the settlement agreement that I know we have a separate hearing on. I think for the settlement agreement, the concern is that I have, and I think a lot of people have, is the February 2nd date. Is only pausing the transfers until February 2nd, and that's only 3 months away, and so that's still a great concern. And so I just had some. Well, actually, I have a question about why how the February 2nd date was determined while we have the November 13th date for continued reimbursements. So maybe that's for the separate hearing. Okay. And can you report on how many have been transferred, since the transfer plan was created so far? I think I saw 57 in one.
That is correct. There were 57 that were transferred prior to the pause, and so we've not done any more transfers. There have been a couple of resident-initiated discharges where they actually one gentleman was able to discharge and go to his family in Texas. So there have been a couple, but not anything substantial.
Mm-hmm. I think I asked you in the last hearing whether any of those that have been transferred, especially involuntarily, will have the opportunity to come back now that the transfers have paused. And you indicated that that wouldn't be possible. Is that still the case?
Currently, we are still not approved by CMS or CDPH to do new admissions. But we have said whenever we do receive authorization to resume admissions, either through obtaining recertification or some other mechanism, that we will give priority status to individuals who were previously at Laguna who still have skilled nursing needs. They will be at the front of the line before any new admission applicants are considered.
So transferred residents or patients that were transferred, they would be considered new admissions in order to come back to Laguna Honda Hospital?
They'll be considered new admissions, but again, they're going to have preference over someone who wasn't there before. So technically, from a CMS reimbursement perspective, there'll be new admissions, but from our admissions screening process, they will be preferred status admissions.
And in order for you to resume new admissions at Laguna Honda Hospital, is that the full recertification that's required, or can it happen sooner through a CDPH or some other authorization?
So my understanding is our route to admissions is through recertification. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Moore. I don't see anyone else on the roster. Madam Clerk, can we go to public comment on these hearings for item 40 and 41?
Yes, Mr. President. At this time, the Board of Supervisors welcomes public testimony on both public hearings. The first is about the Laguna Honda Hospital strategy for recertification and the submission of a closure and patient transfer and relocation plan and the settlement agreement. We are joined from our partners from the Office of Civic Engagement and Immigrant Affairs and Lando Associates. They both know to jump in and assist any member of the public who needs interpretation assistance. For those of you who took the time to come down to the chamber to provide your testimony, please line up on your right-hand side. We'll begin with those who've joined us in the chamber, and then thereafter we'll go to the remote system. So, ma'am, this is your opportunity to address the board. I'm speaking to the member of the public who's in white. Please come on up to the podium. We are setting the timer for 2 minutes. And if there are any other speakers who'd like to address the board on this issue, please come up to the podium. Otherwise, we'll go immediately to the remote call-in system. Welcome.
Hello, I'm glad I'm here at the right time, this time around. Okay, and I'm very glad that I stayed for the whole meeting. My name is Melanie Grossman, and I'm a social worker with many years of experience in discharge planning, referral, admissions to nursing homes, and aftercare services. And I'm also the president of the Older Women's League, and we are especially concerned that older women, that the facility remain open and available for older women, which is a traditional population there, and not be squeezed out by new admissions who are not necessarily there for physical rehabilitation and that type of thing. So I heard a lot of good things today, but I still am concerned about the Flow Project, which is something that was, I think, at the beginning of this problem, in that San Francisco General, in my understanding, and the Department of Public Health arranged so that patients who needed to be out of the General would be transferred into Laguna Honda. And traditionally, a nursing home or any aftercare facility would have the opportunity to evaluate.
You have some time.
Evaluate the patient and have some say into whether or not those patients are appropriate. And I'm very glad to hear that people who were discharged previously would be first in line for coming back. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Melanie Grossman, and for your patience this afternoon. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to address the board on this matter? Okay, seeing no one jumping up, we'll head over to Kevin Lamb. Mr. Lamb, do we have any callers in the remote system? Welcome, caller.
So, Supervisors, first and foremost, this gentleman who gave the presentation, you know he's contracted and he earns over $5 million. We would like to get some presentation from a person like Attorney Renee to know exactly what's happening. Supervisor, as well as the person who just spoke, alluded to the San Francisco General Hospital sending addicts to Laguna Honda. And generally, you supervisors don't give a damn that this is not supposed to be. To save money, they're sending chronic addicts to Laguna Honda. And y'all don't seem to care about it. Would you send your grandmother or your mother to Laguna Honda knowing that there are drug addicts there? Many of them ruthless. This has to be addressed. Laguna Honda was not created to put our elders in harm's way. But that's what you supervisors did, because y'all didn't monitor the San Francisco Health Department, which is a rogue department. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. DaCosta, for your comments this afternoon. Mr. Lamb, do we have another caller in the queue, please? Excuse me.
Yes, hi, my name is Joseph Urban, and my apologies if my audio is bad. I'm calling in from Mexico. On Thursday, September 29th, my mother-in-law, Betty Campbell, passed away in the care of the wonderful staff in the South 3 floor of Laguna Honda. We miss Betty, and her funeral will be held at St. Vincent de Paul Church on Green Street on November 11th at 11 a.m., and everybody's welcome to attend. Betty was at risk of being transferred, and we almost did allow her to be transferred before we recognized that we could fight back. Consequently, my wife and I initiated the petition, and I wrote 2 essays that many of you have read. I was blessed to be inspired to fight for Betty and learned how I could also fight for other residents at Laguna Honda, and our fight continues. The risk of transfer trauma has not yet been mitigated. We experienced a 22% death rate among the 42 skilled nursing residents that were transferred. There has not been a systematic scientific analysis of the cause or causes of these deaths. There has not been a scientific assessment of the residents that are at risk of transfer trauma. There is no process to reverse the resident's transfer if they are experiencing transfer trauma. If a proper study is executed to mitigate the risk of transfer trauma deaths, it will take much more time than the 3 months between now and February 3rd. We already know that people have died. We do not see any serious formal effort to understand all aspects of transfer trauma and communicate the findings to the people or family of Laguna Honda residents. This is the responsibility of CMS and the California Department of Public Health. In my opinion, the transfer trauma and relocation program is allowed to proceed without that formal study and deaths occur. The DA should be engaged to determine if criminal action should be taken against CMS and CDPH. The evidence is there. People have already died. In my essay, I outlined a rigorous study that should be executed to keep this process from killing more residents.
Thank you, Joseph Urban, for your comments this afternoon. Mr. Lamb, do we have another caller in the queue? Before you answer, I know that there are 8 callers who are listening. If you're one of the 8 and you'd like to provide testimony this afternoon, please make sure you press *3, otherwise we'll take this group to the end. And now we'll welcome our next caller.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. This is Patrick Manetto. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I am calling from a hospital room where I just had a squamous cell carcinoma removed from my cheek and a flap created all over my face. It's affecting my speech and because of the dragging down of my mouth. I want to challenge Mr. Pickens' assertion that cohorting patients in a single tower at Laguna Honda is a feasible, viable idea. I wish I could have submitted written testimony for this hearing today, but cohorting one group of patients in a 300-bed tower and the other group of patients in a 420-bed tower is simply not possible without having to restrict the number of beds in one or the other tower, almost in effect returning you to the loss of the 120 beds. I think the Board of Supervisors, before agreeing to the tentative settlement agreement, has got to insist on making sure that CMS honors Laguna Honda's initial configuration of 3-bedroom units that account for the 120 beds. This is nonsense that the settlement agreement
Thank
is
you, Patrick
silent
Monette-Shaw.
on.
Thank you for your comments. All right, Mr. Lamb, do we have another caller in the queue, please?
Hello. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate so many of the people who spoke on this issue. And I would say that I very much agree with the earlier woman who was speaking of how older women are often not receiving equal services, and especially with the attention that substance abusers do receive because of the homeless issue. Oftentimes there is a bit of invisibility for women, and especially aging women. I also wanted to say thank you to that last speaker. I agree with what he said. And I think that the transfer trauma is a very real thing. I would really hope that you would spend additional time looking into the transfer trauma. And I think that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Citizen 22, for your comments. Mr. Lamb, do we have another caller in the queue, please?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Yeah. My name's Dr. Teresa Palmer. I'm an ex-employee at Laguna Honda. And there's no scenario where resumption of a closure plan is safe. And the current settlement is predicated on closure. Attorney Chu told me that himself. I'm disturbed by the lack of transparency. There is a revised closure plan that the public is not privy to. We are all stakeholders in Laguna Honda. All San Francisco citizens who are getting older, and that's all of us, are stakeholders at Laguna Honda, and this should be transparent. The quality of nursing homes that accept Medi-Cal in the community is much lower than the quality of care at Laguna Honda, and any resumption of forced discharges is going to lead to a regional catastrophe in the availability of Medi-Cal funded nursing home beds, not just in San Francisco, but regionally, and people will die. And so there's got to be a way of working with CMS. I don't know enough to say whether you should accept a settlement and then go forward and try to cut a better deal. I'm not sure, but we cannot allow forced discharges or transfers or whatever euphemism you use to resume. My understanding is Laguna Honda is licensed by the state And if the state continues the licensure, the state and the city together could bridge any lost funding. The state has been part of the problem. CDPH has given Laguna Honda Management bad advice, and Laguna Honda Management was bad enough to take it. Now, great good faith efforts are being made
Thank
to
you,
fix
Dr.
this.
Teresa Palmer, for your comments. Mr. Lamb, do we have another caller in the queue, please?
Hello, my name is Art Persico. I'm a board member of the San Francisco Gray Panthers. Laguna Honda is our precious public long-term care facility in San Francisco. It must be preserved. For-profit care is not a good alternative, as we've seen during the pandemic. But Laguna Honda Hospital needs to be run for all the people of San Francisco, as Dr. Palmer said, and we need transparency in this process. And we should not allow the deadly transfers to resume because it kills fragile residents, as we've seen. Laguna Honda must be open to all of us in San Francisco who need nursing home care. We need to restore admissions to Laguna Honda Hospital. Residents already discharged by force must be allowed to return. No forced closure. Funding for existing residents must continue until recertification. No loss of beds in this nearly new facility. No forced discharges of skilled nursing facility eligible residents under any circumstances. No discharge for non-SNF eligible residents until safe and local arrangements are made. Stop the flow project and return admission decisions to LHH staff. As I said, transparency and planning changes of Laguna Honda policies and operations. Provide sufficient mental health and substance use programs and beds to give people the care they need, and sufficient services for elders and people with disabilities to stay in their communities where possible to prevent inappropriate nursing home admissions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Lamb, do we have another caller in the queue, please?
Madam Clerk, we have no more callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lamb. Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Seeing no other speakers, public comment is now closed. Comments, colleagues? Seeing no other colleagues with any comments, these two hearings have been heard and are now filed. And for the members of the public, we are going into closed session for item number 44, and we will return after our deliberations.
SF Gov TV, San Francisco Government Television. SF Gov TV, San Francisco Government Television.
Good evening. We are now calling this November 1st, 2022 Board of Supervisors meeting back to open session. Just informing the public that there was no action taken during our closed session. And I will now entertain a motion from colleagues that it finds in the best interest of the public that the board elect not to disclose its closed session deliberations. Made by Supervisor Melgar, seconded by Supervisor Dorsey. Madam Clerk, on the motion.
On the motion that no action be, Mr. President, I was taking another note. Can you repeat the motion that in the best interest not to disclose the proceedings of the closed session?
Correct.
Made by Supervisor Melgar, seconded by
Supervisor Dorsey.
Supervisor Dorsey. Supervisor Preston.
Aye.
Preston, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai. Safai, aye. Supervisor Stephanie. Stephanie, aye. Supervisor Walton.
Aye.
Walton, aye. Supervisor Chan. Chan, aye. Supervisor Dorsey. Dorsey, aye. Supervisor Mandelman. Mandelman, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Melgar. Melgar, aye. And Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. There are 11 ayes.
Thank you. Without objection, we will not disclose our closed session deliberations. I don't see anyone wish to speak, so this Closed session has been held and is now filed. We have already called item number 45. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on item number 45?
On item 45, Supervisor Preston.
Aye.
Preston, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai. Safai, aye. Supervisor Stephanie. Stephanie, aye. Supervisor Walton.
Aye.
Walton, aye. Supervisor Chan. Chan, aye. Supervisor Dorsey. Dorsey, aye. Supervisor Mandelman. Mandelman, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Melgar.
Aye.
Melgar, aye. And Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. There are 11 ayes.
Thank you. Without objection, this ordinance is passed on first reading unanimously. Madam Clerk, do we have any imperative agenda items?
There are none to report, Mr. President.
Would you please read the in memoriams into record?
Yes, today's meeting will be adjourned in memory of the following beloved individual on behalf of President Walton for the late Mr. Mitz Akashi.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do we have any more business before us?
That concludes our business for today.
An eye for an eye only makes the whole world blind. This meeting is adjourned.